Chapter 976. Although Xiao Chun had the reincarnation lamp, he did not dare to be careless. However, there was good news. Gong Sun Hualong and Mr. Wei had managed to injure this golden bone demonic soul. It was no longer in a perfect state. Whoosh! Xiao Chun's figure flashed, and he blocked the golden bone demonic soul, which was preparing to charge at Bai. The cold golden bone demonic soul waved its hand, and the huge scythe turned into a beam of dim light. Fast! This was the only word in Xiao Chun's mind. He instantly moved his entire body, materializing the flawless saber Dao, using his body as a saber and his palm as a blade. Xiao Chun swung his palm horizontally, blocking the other party's scythe in the time it took for a spark to fly. The dense death chi was condensed to the extreme. The force from the scythe instantly shattered the saber intent that Xiao Chun condensed. A strange look flashed in Xiao Chun's eyes as he quickly switched moves. He used his palm as a saber and his shoulder as a blade. Since he lacked strength, he would break it with skill. Xiao Chun placed his palm on the scythe, and his shoulder became like a blade, bright and flawless, radiating a sharp light as he charged at the golden bone demonic soul's chest. Bang! Several of the golden bone demonic soul's ribs broke, and its body was knocked back 1 kilometer. As expected, the other party's shattered ribs reconnected in the blink of an eye. Compared to such a monster, Xiao Chun felt inferior. Seeing that the other party was about to charge over again, Xiao Chun suppressed the death chi in his body. Then he narrowed his eyes and sent out the reincarnation lamp. Xiao Chun quickly flicked out some essence blood from his fingertip and lit the lamp wick. The immortal Buddha figure in the illusory light started chanting the expiation scripture. The ancient scripture contained the power to expiate all living things, cleansing the golden bone demonic soul's impure soul. The golden bone demonic soul's body immediately turned into 2 figures of different colors, one black and one white, clearly distinguishing between good and evil. Then they started an intense battle. One sought release, and the other sank into oblivion. Xiao Chun's face was slightly pale. This was the first time he had encountered such a ghost that was struggling so fiercely. The expiation scripture recited by the illusionary figure in the reincarnation lamp seemed to be unable to suppress this devil. Xiao Chun's heart sank, and he could not help but increase the speed at which his laws flowed. Purple rings of light slowly appeared behind him. The flickering light of the cycle lamp grew increasingly brighter. He looked down and saw that Bai was waving at him. The icy snow flame was already in his hands. Yuan Su and Kong Yuan also greeted each other. The severely injured and weakened Gong Sun Hualong had already been dealt with. Based on my strength, I won't be able to refine this monster in a short time. Don't worry about it for now. Xiao Chun muttered. His gaze moved to the golden bone demonic soul. The battle between the black and white phantoms on the golden bone demonic soul's body had already reached its climax. Sometimes, kindness would gain the upper hand, and the skeleton monster would emit thousands of strands of gentle chi. Sometimes evil thoughts would gain the upper hand. Evil energy would soar into the sky, and baleful energy would surge like the sea. After this happened several times, Xiao Chun found an opportunity. When the kindness took over the golden bone demonic soul, he opened his hand and put away the cycle lamp. Then he turned and flew off. Let's go. Xiao Chun summoned out the 8 ghost palanquin. Bai and the other 2 had been waiting for a long time. Their figures flashed, and Xiao Chun controlled the 8 ghost palanquin to fly to the center of the island. After losing the cycle lamp's power to purify nature, the kindness that appeared on the golden bone demonic soul lasted for a while before vanishing, never to appear again. When the golden bone demonic soul saw the empty mound, it roared furiously and started a frenzied rampage. 2 figures landed 1 kilometer away. Qing Cheng and the azure-clad old man who had been following Xiao Chun's group silently appeared in the air. When they saw the berserk golden bone demonic soul, they were shocked. No wonder young Miss treats this person differently. That secret treasure in his hand landed in the hands of the Ghost Monarch's faction. It would be a disaster for us, the azure-clad old man said, flabbergasted. Qing Cheng frowned and did not say anything. She had just come out of closed-door cultivation after 1 month. The moment she entered the 8th layer of purgatory, she saw the entire forest blazing with flames. In the last breath lake, Xiao Chun had reformed the undying phantoms. It was like a miracle. All the strange things in the last breath lake had been purified. Qing Cheng was astonished. She had somewhat forgotten about the secret treasure in Xiao Chen's hand. Unexpectedly, it could erupt with such horrifying power. The azure-clad old man continued smiling. He used a will clone to kill Mo Lian and offended Xie Zixuan. He has thoroughly offended the Ghost Monarch's faction, giving us a chance to rope him in. Qing Cheng nodded slightly and asked, "Did you manage to obtain the soul-returning grass?" "Yes. Young Miss is in closed-door cultivation. Leave Jiang Qingzi to me for now." The old man took out a brocade box and opened it, revealing a piece of jade-green soul-returning grass. Qing Cheng received it and revealed a satisfied expression. She said, "You may withdraw. I intend to enter the Yellow Springs Road alone with them." "Young Miss, no one has been to the Yellow Springs Road for many years already. I do not know what dangers there will be." "Let this old man accompany you," the azure-clad old man said worriedly. However, Qing Cheng did not care. "We already crossed the last breath lake. What dangers can there be on the Yellow Springs Road? Just don't turn back. I have long wanted to see if the cycle of reincarnation still exists on the other side of the bridge of helplessness." Seeing Qing Cheng insist, the azure-clad old man did not say anything more. He took his leave. Inside the 8-ghost palanquin, Bai felt extremely excited. Xiao Chen had killed a great grandmaster level martial sage without suffering any injuries. This was something that he would not have dared to imagine normally. Xiao Chen's heart pounded slightly. Things went much more smoothly than expected. The only flaw was that he had to use the Haotian Emperor's will clone. However, Xiao Chen did not feel that it was a pity. When facing a great grandmaster level martial sage, the will clone had the strength to kill them. However, it paled in comparison to an expert like the blue-robed emperor. Furthermore, it could only be used once. If Xiao Chen could bring out the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram further, he would be able to protect himself when facing a great grandmaster level martial sage. Although the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram was not as tyrannical as the will clone, which could explode a great grandmaster level martial sage, Xiao Chen could use it an unlimited number of times. Xiao Chen felt that using the will clone for the icy snow flame was completely worth it. Furthermore, he had earned a lot from it. At the very least, the medicinal pills that Mr. Wei had on him benefited them greatly. Elder brother Xiao Chen, the icy snow flame. Xiaobai giggled. On her white jade-like palm, there was a ball of liquid-like ice crystal flame that blossomed beautifully. "Be careful. This flame has a very heavy cold qi. Elder brother Xiao Chen, don't get injured." Xiao Chen smiled faintly. There was an even colder flame in his left eye. His heart skipped a beat. With a thought, the lunar true flame in his left eye spun and formed a whirlpool. Then, it sucked in the icy snow flame in Bai's hand. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and removed his shoes and socks. Then he sat cross-legged on the large bed in the palanquin, and started to let the lunar true flame slowly swallow up the icy snow flame. Kong Yuan and Yuan Su, who were counting the treasures in Mr. Wei's, Gong Sun Hualong's and Mo Lian's spatial rings, revealed shock when they saw this. The icy snow flame dares to swallow so roughly? What kind of flame is that white flame in his left eye? Kong Yuan asked, feeling confused. Yuan Su revealed a grave expression and said, "If I did not see wrong, it is the lunar true flame. Furthermore, it even condensed an origin flame." Lunar true flame. Bai and Kong Yuan were both startled. The lunar true flame and the solar true flame were the two strongest flames in the world. If one could obtain even a clump of these two flames, one would be very lucky. However, Xiao Chen hid so many flames in his left eye and even condensed an origin flame. This was truly unbelievable. Kong Yuan sighed and said, "I have been shocked enough over the past few days. I am already numb to it. If it were in the past, who told me that I could easily snatch treasures from a great grandmaster level martial sage, I would not have believed it even if you beat me to death. However, it really happened today. I have no choice but to believe it." Yuan Su smiled faintly, not denying anything on his charming face. He could understand Kong Yuan's disappointment. They were both outstanding talents, but the difference between them was too great. However, Bai smiled warmly. He thought to himself, "I still have to work harder. The distance between me and Xiaochen widened again. Half a day later, Xiaochen opened his eyes. He had finished swallowing the icy snow flame. He wanted to find a place to test its might, to see if he could balance yin and yang and execute the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram again. However, there were more important things to do. He could only put this thought aside, as they had arrived at the gates of hell. After putting away the 8 ghost palanquin, Xiaochen and the other 3 slowly descended and sized up the gates of hell before them. There was a black gate plate made of 10,000-year-old ancient wood. The plaque in the middle had 3 large scarlet words, Gates of Hell. The strokes were very vigorous. With every stroke, one could feel death chi. A black light screen covered the sect, preventing one from seeing the world behind the gates. Rumor had it that when one stepped through these gates, one would be separated from the living and the dead, walking on the path of no return. There was no one near the gates of hell. There was a strange suppressive aura that made one uncomfortable. Let's go in. Xiaochen took the lead, preparing to enter the gates of hell in a flash. A bladesman naturally had nothing to fear. There was no need to think too much, fearing wolves in front and tigers behind. Since they had to enter sooner or later and could not figure it out, they could just walk in openly. However, just as Xiaochen was about to step in, he frowned and stopped in front of the gates of hell. Feeling suspicious, Bai asked, "Elder brother Xiaochen, what's wrong?" Xiaochen turned his head back and said calmly, "Someone is rushing over." "Hehe. Young Master Xiao is really courageous. Let me accompany you on the path to the Yellow Springs." A bell-like laughter rang out. Qing Cheng's red dress drifted down. The eyes of the group lit up. Unexpectedly, Qing Cheng appeared again, arriving at the Yellow Springs road that she was unwilling to take. Whoosh. After Qing Cheng landed, she tossed out a brocade box. Xiaochen caught it and opened it. It was one of the 3 items he was looking for, the soul-returning grass. What is the meaning of this? Xiaochen looked at Qing Cheng suspiciously, not knowing what she was planning. Qing Cheng giggled and said, "What's wrong? You don't need it? With your brain, I'm sure you've already guessed that whether it was Emolian or Xuan, I did it on purpose. You have thoroughly offended the Ghost Monarch's faction. There will definitely be a battle between Ghost Empress Shisun and the Mountain Monarch in the future. At that time, I believe you should know which side to stand on." Xiaochen thought for a while and knew what the other party was planning. She was forcing him to choose a side. The expressions of Bai and the other 2 changed slightly. Their gazes at Qing Cheng turned somewhat hostile. Chapter 977. I like interacting with smart people. Miss Qing Cheng, it looks like you understand how I do things. If I can grow strong enough to interfere in the battle between the Ghost Empress and the Mountain Monarch, I will definitely make a trip to the Ghost Domain. Xiaochen carefully put away the soul-returning grass. However, he did not care much. The other party's honesty prevented him from harboring any ill will. Choosing sides was not without its benefits. The Ghost Empress Shisun could be considered a peak expert, comparable to the Holy Lord of the 3 Holy Masters' Holy Land. Xiaochen indeed needed the soul-returning grass in his hand. More importantly, he did not regret what he did. Be it repelling Xuan, or using a Wu clone to kill Emolian, it was his own decision. Even if Xiaochen had to do it again, he would not hesitate to make the decision. A bladesman never hesitated. Seeing Xiaochen agree, Qing Cheng heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. She recalled the encounter on the 8 ghost palanquin in the underworld land. The encounter on the 8 ghost palanquin in the underworld land gave her a taste of Xiaochen's temper. One should not threaten the other party at any time. One should use an unexpected method. Perhaps one might even obtain the desired result. Yuan Su said calmly, "Since Miss Qing Cheng is here, you can tell me how much you know about the Yellow Springs Road now, right?" Qing Cheng glanced at Yuan Su and said with a smile, "To you all, the Yellow Springs Road is actually not dangerous. As long as you do not turn back, you will definitely reach the Bridge of Helplessness. Do not turn back on the Yellow Springs Road." This was not the first time Xiaochen heard Qing Cheng say this. However, why could one not turn back? Don't ask me why. Those who dared to turn back are all dead. Qing Cheng shrugged to indicate that she did not understand either. This matter is strange. 10,000 years ago, this saying never appeared. The Yellow Springs Road is a popular experiential training ground in the 9 layers of purgatory. There are always ghost race disciples who come here to hunting soldiers. This saying only slowly spread in modern times. There are too many strange things, so not many people come to the Yellow Springs Road. Xiaochen remembered this saying. Then he turned around and stepped into the gates of hell without hesitation. Descending the 9 nether, entering the gates of hell, crossing the Yellow Springs, no matter what danger it was, as long as he could revive Ao Jiao, no matter how big the risk was, it would all be worth it. When the others saw Xiaochen enter, they pondered for a moment before entering one after another. They were also very curious about the Yellow Springs Road. As far as the eye could see, the scenery had changed. Apart from the red spider lilies blooming at the side of the Yellow Springs path, the Yellow Springs path, the Yellow Springs path, the Yellow Springs path was filled with red spider lilies. Only black and white existed between heaven and earth. Everything was either black or white, including themselves. They were all assimilated into this world. His body was only black and white. After sensing the condition of his body, Xiaochen did not find anything wrong with it. It was just that all the colors on his body had disappeared. His strength was still there, and so was the power of the laws. Xiaochen's heart calmed down. He squatted down and plucked a few red spider lilies from the Yellow Springs Road. The 3 items needed to revive Ao Jiao were the red spider lily, the resurrection grass, and the 3 live stone. Now, only the 3 live stone was left. The stone of 3 lives was at the end of the Yellow Springs Road, beside the bridge of helplessness. One only needed to break it and obtain a small piece. Let's go. Be careful. There are soldiers here. In the past, before the Yellow Springs Road changed, many experts of my race liked to come here to hunt soldiers. After refining them, they could become strong helpers. Qingcheng said carefully as she looked around. Soldiers were the army of the Netherworld Palace. They were previously soldiers who had experienced fierce battles. After they died, they were used by the 10 Yama kings of the 10 halls. After they died, they were trained to strengthen the rule of the soldiers. They were either used to defend against strong invasions, or to expand territory in the Netherworld. They were extremely strong existences. Xiaochen stood up and carefully put away the red spider lily. The sky was gray, and the ends of his vision were hazy. It was like there was no end to this road. After hearing Qingcheng's reminder, Xiaochen constantly circulated his law energy. Rings of purple electric light appeared behind him as he quickly walked forward. Every time Xiaochen walked for a distance, a headless corpse would fall to the ground, appearing before the group. Xiaochen flipped the corpse over. The other parts of the body were undamaged. The group exchanged glances, not knowing how this person died. After that, they saw several corpses every once in a while. All of them were headless corpses sprawled on the ground. Their cause of death was unknown. The endless Yellow Springs Road was a world of black and white. Headless corpses kept appearing, adding a strange atmosphere to the Yellow Springs Road. Clang! Clang! Suddenly, the sound of metal clashing appeared in front. A group of heavily armored soldiers wielding weapons rode a war chariot, and quickly flew over. Soldiers are passing by. Little ghosts, quickly make way. A soldier standing on the war chariot shouted loudly. These soldiers had lost their true intelligence long ago. Their memories stopped at the moment when the netherworld shattered, and the cycle of reincarnation ceased. Every day, at every moment, these soldiers repeated the same actions, guarding the endless Yellow Springs Road. The reincarnation lamp is useless against these soldiers. Just kill them. There are no generals among them. It is not very problematic, Qingcheng reminded when she saw Xiaochen raise the reincarnation lamp. With a flip of his hand, Xiaochen put away the reincarnation lamp. Then he executed the Kuanpeng fist, and a huge Kuanpeng appeared, surrounded by electricity. The force of the punch flipped the war chariot over. The others quickly made their moves. Although this group of soldiers was difficult to deal with, it was as Qingcheng said. There were no truly powerful existences among them. After about 7 minutes, all the soldiers on the war chariot died. Before they died, they said, soldiers are passing by. Little ghosts make way. Xiao Chun, who had stopped attacking, was about to continue on his way. When he heard Bai calling him, he habitually turned his head back, wanting to ask what was the matter. Halfway through, Xiao Chun's expression changed drastically as he suddenly reacted. This voice was indeed the same as Bai's. However, Bai always addressed Xiao Chun as elder brother Xiao Chun and not Xiao Chun alone. However, it was already too late to turn his head. The instant Xiao Chun turned his head, he saw an extremely horrifying scene. A headless Buddha descended from the sky, giving off a scarlet Buddhist light. When it stretched out its palm, it expanded infinitely. Then, 2 fingers moved to clamp down on Xiao Chun's head. Kasie. The 2 fingers gently clamped down, and Xiao Chun's head was removed. Then, he turned into a headless corpse lying on the ground. This was no different from the corpses Xiao Chun saw earlier. It's not my head. It's not my head. Who took my head? The headless Buddha gently placed Xiao Chun's head on its head and tried a few times. The Buddha's belly wriggled and gave off dull demonic sounds as it tossed the head away. The only thing the Buddha did not notice was that before the head landed on the ground, it disintegrated on its own, turning into air and scattering. Bai and the others were horrified. They could not help but turn their heads to see what was happening. Quickly go. Don't look back. A figure appeared in front. It was the originally dead Xiao Chun. Bai rejoiced and quickly ran over. Xiao Chun's headless corpse on the ground slowly turned into air and scattered as well. Only after Xiao Chun was far away did he stop. The others quickly stopped to ask what was going on. Xiao Chun's heart had not calmed down yet, still thumping endlessly. This was a situation that had not happened in a long time. His mental state was in utter chaos. In that instant earlier, he felt that he could not dodge at all, and would die in the next moment. Even if a great Grandmaster-level martial sage or the blue-robed emperor came, they would not be able to dodge that Buddha's palm. At the critical moment, Xiao Chun executed the life bestowal spell, and materialized a clone out of the air. Then his true body quickly fled, barely managing to avoid this calamity. If that headless Buddha had continued fighting, Xiao Chun would have died for sure. Fortunately, after fleeing for so long, they did not see that headless Buddha attack again. Perhaps it was because Xiao Chun had not completely turned his head around. What did you see earlier? Qing asked anxiously. Everyone knew that one should not look back on the road to the Yellow Springs. However, human curiosity was always the strongest. Everyone wanted to know what they saw when they turned their heads around. Xiao Chun calmed himself down and said, I saw a headless Buddha. However, I only saw its side, and did not see its exact appearance. Yuan Su was the most knowledgeable of the group. He immediately said, in hell, only the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva is related to Buddhism. His abilities are incredible, comparable to the Buddha. However, he is not a Buddha but a Bodhisattva. Due to the long period of time, many people could not distinguish the difference between a Bodhisattva and a Buddha. Yuan Su could not explain in detail. Yuan Su could only give a simple explanation. Buddhas were equivalent to the immortal lords of the immortal epoch. Bodhisattvas were Mahayana immortal cultivators who had not undergone their tribulations yet. However, this Kittagarbha Bodhisattva was somewhat special. His abilities were boundless, and his abilities were much stronger than those of ordinary Buddhas. Because the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva made a great vow to not become a Buddha until hell was empty, he did not become a Buddha, and only addressed himself as a Bodhisattva. Qing muttered, I've heard a little about this Kittagarbha Bodhisattva. However, since he is so powerful, why did someone chop off his head? The expressions of the others changed slightly as well. According to Qing, the changes to the Yellow Springs Road happened 10,000 years ago. That was to say, 10,000 years ago, this Bodhisattva, who was even stronger than an immortal lord, was still in hell and had not been beheaded. Based on the timeline, 10,000 years ago was the time when the Qing Emperor was in power, sweeping through the world, unrivaled. If the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva was really beheaded 10,000 years ago, then the one who did it might have been the Qing Emperor. Who could have beheaded the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva, who was even stronger than an immortal lord? Aside from the Qing Emperor, there was no one else who could have done it. However, was the Qing Emperor really that strong? Xiao Chun shook his head and stopped thinking about this. He said, Let's stand side by side for the rest of the way. No matter what we hear, do not turn back. After Xiao Chen's narrow escape from death, the five no longer dared to doubt his words about not turning back on the Yellow Springs Road. In this black and white world, the Permitha flower, the only one with color beside the Yellow Springs Road, burned like a flame, looking incredibly scarlet. Later on, the five met with several strong Yin soldiers. There were even Yin soldiers that rivaled great grandmaster-level martial sages. The five used their full power and fought with all their might before barely managing to kill the Yin soldiers. The seemingly endless Yellow Springs Road was an excellent land for experiential training. The headless Kittagarbha Bodhisattva behind them constantly tested their mental states. Chapter 978. The endless stream of Yin soldiers tempered everyone's martial techniques in this life and death situation. Only by bringing out their strength to the peak could they persevere. The Yellow Springs Road was not easy to traverse. Even after walking for 3 months, they still could not see the way back. Everyone's strength had improved significantly here. Even Xiao Chen had completed the Summer Saber and Spring Saber in 3 months. Now he could execute the complete flawless 4 seasons. More importantly, with the tempering of the headless Kittagarbha Bodhisattva behind him, Xiao Chen's saber soul successfully advanced to great perfection. For some reason, the headless Kittagarbha Bodhisattva's voice rang out in Xiao Chen's ears most of the time. All sorts of illusory voices turned into different people in Xiao Chen's heart, calling out his name. The voices were either sorrowful, joyful, pained, or desperate. Several times Xiao Chen nearly turned his head back. However, his unwavering heart as a bladesman allowed him to persevere. The 4 strands of saber soul around the Will of Thunder became even brighter, reaching 7 strands. This was the sign of a great perfection saber soul. During the battle with the Yin soldiers, Xiao Chen merged the 2 into 1, forming his own unique lightning saber soul. In the end, when facing the great grandmaster-level Yin soldiers, Xiao Chen would be able to block them by himself. Helplessness, helplessness. After another 5 days, a few cries of helplessness rang out in everyone's ears. Following that, the sound of flowing water filled the air. Xiao Chen and the others revealed joy on their faces as they looked to the front. At the limits of their vision, they finally saw a river blocking their way and the vague silhouette of a bridge. If there were no surprises, that should be the Bridge of Helplessness. The 3 life stone was beside the Bridge of Helplessness. After knocking off a piece, they would be able to collect the 3 items needed to revive Ao Jiao. Let's go. The fatigue of the past few days was swept away. Xiao Chen revealed joy on his face as he quickened his pace, quickly moving forward in this black and white world. For hours later, the group moved as fast as lightning and arrived before the Bridge of Helplessness. The headless Kittagarbha Bodhisattva, who had been following them, was no longer there. Black winds blew on the Bridge of Helplessness, and the water flowed endlessly. Qing Cheng's expression froze as she muttered, "It broke." Indeed, it was broken. Only half of the Bridge of Helplessness remained, hanging alone above the Helplessness River. It was unknown where the other half of the Nirvana cycle had drifted to when hell was shattered. However, whether it was broken or not had nothing to do with Xiao Chen. He was currently hammering on a huge rock beside the bridge. It was the Stone of 3 Lives. Unfortunately, its divinity was gone. If the infernal realm was still around and the 6 paths of reincarnation hadn't been destroyed, then the Stone of 3 Lives could reveal a person's past and future. After successfully knocking down a 3-life stone, Xiao Chen revealed a smile. After spending 4 months in the 9 hells of purgatory, he had finally gathered all 3 items. However, after thinking about it, Xiao Chen felt worried. The Saber School ranking competition had already begun in 4 months. By the time Xiao Chen rushed back, the once-a-decade Saber School ranking would have already ended. If he couldn't get the 10,000-year flame crystal, would Situ Leihong still call back Ao Jiao for him? Hee, brother Xiao Chen, you don't have to worry anymore. Sister Ao Jiao will be back soon. Bai's face revealed a sincere expression of happiness. The mental tribulation that troubled brother Xiao Chen was finally resolved. If Bai encountered a disaster in the future, Xiao Chen's elder brother would be able to help him. Would he descend to the 9 underworlds, pass through the gates of hell, and walk to the Yellow Springs for his sake? Congratulations. Yuan Su and Kong Yuan also cupped their fists and congratulated him. Xiao Chen did not want to disappoint them, so he did not show the worry in his heart on his face. He said sincerely, "Many thanks to the two of you. If not for your help along the way, this Xiao would not have been able to make it here." Kong Yuan smiled and said, "Brother Xiao is too humble. Even without the two of us, with Brother Xiao's strength, you would have only needed a little more time to make it here." Yuan Su's expression suddenly changed. He pointed in the direction of the Bridge of Helplessness and said, "What is that ghost race girl trying to do? Why is she on the Bridge of Helplessness? She is about to fall off." Xiao Chen looked around and saw Qing Cheng standing on the Bridge of Helplessness with a somewhat dazed expression. If she took another step, she would fall off. Whoosh! The situation was urgent. There was no time to think. Xiao Chen shot forward and landed on the Bridge of Helplessness, pulling Qing Cheng back. Qing Cheng recovered her wits, feeling like she just woke up from a dream. "Sorry, I just wanted to see if the cycle of reincarnation still exists." The immortal Tao no longer existed, and the 6 paths of reincarnation were shattered. Naturally, reincarnation no longer existed. Based on Qing Cheng's appearance, there was clearly something she was hiding. Xiao Chen was not willing to ask about other people's private matters. He said, "Let's go. The Bridge of Helplessness is broken, and we cannot cross this path. We should return." The way back, as long as they followed the source of the water of helplessness, they would be able to walk out of the 8th layer of purgatory. Qing Cheng smiled bitterly. Just as she was about to step off the Bridge of Helplessness, suddenly, countless prayers and praises came from Xiao Chen's body. The black bridge of helplessness under his feet shone with a golden light. It turned into a golden jade bridge of helplessness. Golden diamonds extended from where it broke off. A bridge that led to the other shore automatically extended forward. This sudden scene confused everyone. Even Xiao Chen himself did not know what was going on. The golden jade bridge of helplessness extended all the way to the fog-covered world on the other shore. Yuan Su was stunned for a moment before he reacted. The golden jade bridge of helplessness. According to legend, when a person of great virtue dies and enters the heavenly Tao, the bridge of helplessness will become made of gold and jade. It will shine brightly and sweep away the death qi. Bai blinked and smiled. Elder brother Xiao Chen is a good person. The golden jade bridge of helplessness. Unfortunately, the cycle of reincarnation is already broken. Otherwise, you would be able to enter the heavenly Tao. The three chatted as they walked. Soon, they arrived at the bridge of helplessness. Then they stood side by side with Xiao Chen. As they looked at the fog-covered world on the other shore, they felt somewhat curious. According to legend, after crossing the bridge of helplessness, one would arrive at the land of reincarnation, the 6 paths of reincarnation. Based on one's good and evil merits, one would be reborn. Qing Cheng said in understanding, "I know why this golden jade bridge of helplessness appeared. In the skin-flaying hell, you purified tens of thousands of skeleton phantoms. Those were all evil spirits that had their skins flayed. They sank in Last Breath Lake for tens of thousands of years. Purifying them was a great merit." Xiao Chen did not care. Yes or no, it was not important. Now that the cycle of reincarnation was broken, no matter how great the merit was, it could not enter the heavenly Tao. Suddenly, Xiao Chen thought of the good and evil beneficence art in the painting where the Qing Emperor drew the saber. Then he revealed a contemplative expression. "I want to go over and take a look. I will not give up until I personally see the cycle of reincarnation shatter." Qing Cheng's gaze was resolute. She took a step forward and rushed to the other shore. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared into the fog-covered world. "Don't move. I'll go and check on her." Xiao Chen frowned heavily. He waved his hand to stop Bai and the others. Then he took a few large strides down the bridge of helplessness and arrived at the other shore. The fog before Xiao Chen slowly scattered, and a vast black sea appeared before his eyes. There were tens of thousands of aggrieved spirits and withered skeletons in the sea, all doing their best to move forward. These were the evil spirits of the various hells, wanting to escape the sea of bitterness and surpass the cycle of reincarnation. However, They did not know that the cycle of reincarnation was already broken. Even if they went over, it would still be a sea of bitterness. A gigantic headless monk sat cross-legged in the center of the sea. He formed the universal world seal with his left hand, and the Amitabha Buddhist seal with his right. A boundless might spread out from his body. It was like a tall mountain, like the sea, like the sky, like the earth. Xiaochen felt horrified. This was the physical body of the Kittigarbha Bodhisattva. The headless specter that he saw on the Yellow Springs Road was the Kittigarbha Bodhisattva's body. The Buddhist light behind the Kittigarbha Bodhisattva should have been golden. However, in this black and white world, it looked very plain. Although the physical body was dead, the magic might still remained. The many withered skeletons in the Black Sea did their best to swim over, wanting to reach the world behind the Kittigarbha Bodhisattva and surpass the cycle of reincarnation. However, amid the formless magic might, with every step they took, their bodies shrank. The further they went, the more they shrank, becoming as insignificant as a grain of rice. It looked like they were advancing with every step. However, in reality, they were getting further and further away from the Kittigarbha Bodhisattva. They could never swim over. Xiaochen looked around and found Qingcheng. She was on a specter ship, doing her best to swim forward. Her body and the specter ship slowly shrank, not even realizing it. What kind of obsession does this girl have? The cycle of reincarnation is already broken. Even if she can cross this boundless Black Sea, what is the point? Furthermore, with the Kittigarbha Bodhisattva's physical body here, there is no way to cross. Fortunately, she did not go far. If I am careful, I can pull her back. Qingcheng's specter ship had just left the shore. If she had gone any further, even if Xiaochen wanted to save her, he would not have been able to. Xiaochen stretched out his hand and tapped his forehead. He released the will of thunder and had it hover above his head. Unexpectedly, the purple lightning talisman did not turn black and white in this Yellow Springs realm. It remained purple, flickering with a dazzling electric light. When Xiaochen looked carefully, he saw that the incomprehensible strokes on the talisman gave off some kind of divine light and a faint immortal might. Xiaochen thought, this definitely has something to do with the powerful divine lightning in Misleading Fog Lake. I wonder who the master of that divine lightning talisman is. Xiaochen only copied that person's talisman, yet it did not get assimilated in this black and white world. However, this was a good thing. With the lightning talisman above his head, Xiaochen leaped out and landed on the Black Sea. Xiaochen immediately felt a formless might bearing down on him, making it hard for him to move. That headless Kittigarbha Bodhisattva, who was originally only 5 kilometers away, immediately became 10 times farther. Xiaochen thought to himself, oh no, his body must have shrunk as well. He quickly brought out the will of thunder that contained his great perfection saber soul to its greatest might. His body trembled, and he suddenly grew several times larger. To Xiaochen, the skeletons paddling on the Black Sea were like ants. In reality, Xiaochen knew that it was not that his body had grown larger. Instead, it was that the skeletons in the water could not resist the might and pressure. Their bodies had shrunk significantly. Xiaochen took a step forward with much difficulty. Then he stretched out his hand and grabbed the specter ship, along with Qingcheng, into his palm. Qingcheng, who was on the specter ship, still did not understand what was happening. She stood at the bow of the ship in a daze as she sent out several strong martial techniques. However, those martial techniques also became infinitely smaller in Xiaochen's palm. As long as they were in the Black Sea, they would not be able to fly out of Xiaochen's palm. Without any time to explain, Xiaochen turned to leave. However, just at this moment, something strange happened. Chapter 979. The Sea of Bitterness is boundless. Turn back to the shore before it is too late. Put down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha. This is what the Buddha said. All life has a Buddhist nature, good and evil, turning back and clinging to it. It is all in a single thought. If one's heart turns to Buddha, one can become a Buddha with one thought. Suddenly, boundless Buddhist chanting rang out in the surroundings of the Sea of Oblivion, merciful and merciful, calling for all life to turn back and become a Buddha. When the Buddhist chanting entered Xiaochen's ears, a seed appeared in his heart. All the evil deeds he had done in his life turned into a clinging thought in his mind, inflicting unbearable pain. That seed turned into a benevolent old monk sitting in a lotus flower, materializing a world of bliss. The pure land of ultimate bliss was created. There was joy everywhere, and the light of Buddha shone brightly. There was no pain or torture. This startled Xiaochen. This was to purify him, turning him into an idiotic follower. If he really listened to this Buddhist chanting and turned back, everything in the past would vanish like smoke. Losing himself would be even more horrifying than death. The purple lightning talisman above Xiaochen's head quickly entered his sea of consciousness and shattered all the evil thoughts. The planted seed also disappeared. Huangdang. After losing the protection of the will of thunder, Xiaochen felt the world spin around him. It was like he fell from a tall cliff. When his feet landed firmly on the ground, he discovered that he was standing on Qing Cheng's specter ship. Xiaochen, why are you here? Qing Cheng, who was at the bow of the ship, asked in shock. Her voice also contained a trace of unexpected joy. Xiaochen smiled helplessly. Right now he was probably like Qing Cheng, his body shrunk countless times. At this moment, the Buddhist chanting still lingered. Xiaochen could not leave even if he brought out the will of thunder again. He could only speak to Qing Cheng and wait for an opportunity to leave. When Qing Cheng heard what Xiaochen said, she could not help but turn pale. It turned out that everything that happened earlier was just walking on the spot. There was no way to cross this sea of bitterness. Qing Cheng said coldly, "This Kitagarbha Bodhisattva is really capable. He is trapped in this land of reincarnation, blocking the path of hope. He is no different from a bandit trying to take advantage of the situation." Xiaochen thought about it and agreed. Since hell had been destroyed, the evil spirits in hell would naturally want to reincarnate and become human again. But this guy just had to die and block this place, causing people to be unable to cross the sea of bitterness for the rest of their lives. Then he took the opportunity to preach about Buddhism, enlighten all living beings, and recruit followers. To put it nicely, he swore not to become a Buddha until hell was empty. "It's fine. I'll bring you out after his Buddhist voice fades away," Xiaochen said calmly. However, Qing Cheng shook her head resolutely. "You should go." "I'm not going back. I must personally see the cycle of reincarnation shatter. Otherwise, I will not give up." Xiaochen's expression flickered as he thought of something. "You want to resurrect someone through reincarnation, don't you? The 6 Taoists have already been shattered. Reincarnation no longer exists. This is impossible." Qing Cheng countered with a question. "Did you see it for yourself? Since I haven't seen it with my own eyes, it means that there's still hope. As long as there's a trace of hope, I won't give up." Xiaochen said calmly, "I only believe in this life, not the next. Even if I see it with my own eyes, I won't believe it." Bang! Suddenly, a resplendent saber light appeared in the sky, illuminating this black and white world with many colors. The instant that saber light froze, it was like time and space were behind it. All the Buddhist chants vanished in an instant. The withered skeleton evil ghost that was struggling in the sea of bitterness suddenly became quiet, no longer screaming. The saber light flashed and instantly entered the headless Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's back. The world turned black and white again. What kind of saber light is this? How is it that even the might of the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva could not block it? It easily pierced through it, Xiaochen muttered to himself. Although he felt excited, he still could not understand it. Qing Cheng said, "This is the saber light that the Qing Emperor left behind 10,000 years ago. The Qing Emperor was the one who chopped off the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's head. This is hope. If the 6 paths of reincarnation no longer exist, why would the Qing Emperor put in so much effort to fight this Kitagarbha Bodhisattva? Could the saber light from 10,000 years ago illuminate the entire Yellow Springs River?" The Buddhist voice had already faded. If Xiaochen wanted to leave, all he had to do was take out the will of thunder that contained his great perfection saber soul, and leave the sea of bitterness. There was no need to struggle here. However, when Xiaochen saw the stunning saber light that flashed by, he was certain that the Qing Emperor had chopped off the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's head. Xiaochen's heart wavered. Just because he did not want to think about some things did not mean that he did not want to know the answer. "What's wrong?" The Buddhist voice has already faded. Are you not going to leave? Qing Qing asked with a smile. Xiao Chen replied calmly, I'm not leaving. You don't have to leave either. Wait for a while. I'll bring you through this headless bald donkey. Qing Cheng's eyes lit up. She said, You have a way? Just wait. Xiao Chen did not reply. He sat cross-legged at the bow of the warship and cultivated calmly, waiting for that saber light to arrive again. When that saber light arrived earlier, the blue dragon in the universe ring stirred restlessly. Whether it was as he guessed or not, he would be able to find out once more. When Qing Cheng saw the situation, she could only helplessly sit beside Xiao Chen. She took out a green pearl and stared at it in a daze. A strand of soul was fixed in the transparent pearl, maintaining a leaping posture. Although the ghost race had the ability to collect souls after death, they did not have the ability to resurrect people. They could only refine all sorts of combat-type souls. Furthermore, after refining a soul, it would not be the original soul. It would just lose its intelligence and memories. Who is this person? Is she someone you want to resurrect? Xiao Chen suddenly asked as he opened his eyes and looked at Qing Cheng. A nostalgic expression appeared on Qing Cheng's beautiful face. This is my mother. When she died, I was only 6 years old. My master kept her soul after she died. However, he could not bring her back to life. I've wanted to come to the Yellow Springs Road for a long time already. However, I could not make up my mind. I kept finding excuses for myself, saying that Last Breath Lake is too dangerous, and that I should go when I am stronger. Haha. Actually, I know this myself. I'm just afraid of this final hope shattering, not daring to face it. If not for you wanting to come to the Yellow Springs Road, I do not know when I would be able to take this step. There are some things that I have to see for myself before I can feel at ease. Xiao Chen could hear the sadness in Qing Cheng's voice. She also knew that even if he crossed this sea of bitterness, all that awaited him was a sad ending. However, as she said, there were some things that he had to see for himself before he could feel at ease. 3 lifestone, soul-returning grass, and permetha flower. You collected these to revive the item spirit, right? Qing Qing asked Xiao Chen, changing the topic. Seeing Xiao Chen's somewhat surprised expression, Qing Qing smiled and said, Don't find it strange. This secret technique actually originated from my ghost race. Unfortunately, it is useless on living creatures. However, based on your expression, you do not seem to be very happy. Didn't you already collect all 3 items? Unexpectedly, this Qing Cheng was so observant. Xiao Chen answered honestly, I missed the timing. I did not expect that I would have to walk the Yellow Springs Road for 3 months. Xiao Chen's original plan was to collect the 3 items and return within 3 months. That way, he would be able to participate in the Saber School ranking competition and obtain the 10,000-year-old flame crystal, successfully reviving Ao Jiao. After that, it would be the king conferral ceremony in another 2 months. Everything was going according to plan. However, who could have imagined that just the Yellow Springs Road would take 3 months? Adding on the 1 month before that, the Saber School ranking competition would definitely start. Xiao Chen would definitely not be able to obtain the 10,000-year-old flame crystal. He did not know how to inform Situ Leihong. Qing Cheng smiled and said, In that case, it looks like you are in some trouble. Situ Leihong is a very difficult person to talk to. He does not even give face to a sovereign martial emperor. Xiao Chen did not feel confident. If he had no other choice, he could only ask the sect master to personally make a trip. The sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and the shore is at hand. The Buddhist chanting rang out once more. The many skeleton phantoms in the sea of bitterness all struggled and roared in pain. However, Xiao Chen, who was on the specter ship, had been waiting for a long time already. As he resisted the torture of the Buddhist chanting, he waited quietly in anticipation. The saber light that illuminated the entire Yellow Springs Road appeared once more, shattering the Buddhist chanting and illuminating this black and white world with many colors again. The blue dragon medallion in the universe ring started trembling intensely again. Without saying anything, Xiao Chen grabbed the blue dragon medallion with a flip of his hand. Whoosh! A strong light shot out. Xiao Chen and Qing Chen closed their eyes at the same time. When they opened their eyes again, they were shocked to discover that the saber light was no longer there. Instead, the blue dragon medallion became dazzling. The blue dragon medallion lit up the surrounding 100 meters with many colors. It was a stark contrast to the black and white world on the sea. Unexpectedly, the Qing Emperor's medallion sucked in that saber light that had existed for 10,000 years. At the same time, Qingcheng was shocked to discover that the skeleton phantoms beside the specter ship earlier were now as small as ants. The distance between the two and the headless Kitagarbha Bodhisattva was no longer endless. There were only 5 kilometers left. This would not take much time for the two. Let's go. I'll bring you over. The specter ship carried the two into the air and flew. The 5 kilometers were covered in less than the time it took to brew a pot of tea. When the two got closer, they discovered that blood flowed continuously from the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's head. The sea of bitterness before them was made of the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's blood. When the two saw this, they could not help but feel horrified, their hair standing on end. After flying past the headless Kitagarbha Bodhisattva, the other party's might vanished. Xiaochen stretched out his hand and grasped the blue dragon medallion above his head. He revealed a smile on his face. No matter what, this unexpected harvest of saber light was indeed a big surprise. In the future, if Xiaochen met with an opponent he could not defeat, he could use this saber light to defeat the blue-robed emperor. Behind the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva were the 6 paths of reincarnation. There were 6 huge, shattered whirlpools. Each whirlpool represented a cycle of reincarnation. From the right they were the heavenly Tao, the Azura Tao, the human Tao, the animal Tao, the hungry ghost Tao, and the hell Tao. Xiaochen heaved a sigh of relief. The 6 paths of reincarnation were shattered beyond recognition. There was no way to reincarnate. The worry in his heart vanished. Just as Xiaochen was about to say something, he saw Qingcheng walk over to the whirlpool representing the heavenly Tao and toss in the pearl containing her mother's soul. This is... Xiaochen felt confused. The shattering of the 6 paths of reincarnation did not seem to affect Dao Qingcheng. She smiled and said, "Consider it a thought. According to rumor, after one enters the heavenly Tao, they can be reborn in the immortal world. They can leave their mortal bodies and not suffer the pain of the 6 paths of reincarnation." Chapter 980. Without the cycle of reincarnation, there was nothing much to see here. Xiaochen accompanied Qingcheng to watch for a while before turning to leave. However, what the two did not know was that the instant Xiaochen turned around, the shattered human path whirlpool merged back together, forming a complete cycle whirlpool. A treasure light gathered, and a mysterious passageway opened, leading to an unknown place. Xiaochen sensed something and turned his head back to look. The complete cycle passageway only existed for an instant before it broke apart long ago. He did not see anything. Qingcheng turned her head back as well and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Xiaochen smiled and thought to himself, the 6 paths of reincarnation are really broken. There is only this life in the world. There is no next life. The two successfully crossed the sea of bitterness and met up with Bai's group again on the bridge of helplessness. After a simple explanation of what happened, they set off. On the way back, the group followed Qingcheng's directions and placed the specter ship on the bridge of helplessness, heading upstream. Half a day later, the bridge of helplessness was broken. After passing through a patch of fog, the group miraculously appeared in the underworld land, the place that separated yin and yang. Qingcheng smiled and explained, "Don't find it strange. After the hell shattered, several spatial tiers formed. Several of these spatial tears are not too dangerous. Instead, they are shortcuts to the 9 layers of purgatory. However, only our ghost race knows about them." When the group returned to the surface, they all took in deep breaths. They finally made it out of the 9 layers of purgatory alive. Qingcheng returned the cycle banner to Xiaochen. Then she smiled and said, "I'll take my leave. There are less than 2 months left to your king conferral ceremony. At that time, if nothing unexpected happens, I will go and join in the excitement." After getting rid of her mental tribulation, Qingcheng felt much more relaxed. After saying goodbye to everyone, she left calmly. There was half a month between the sword school ranking competition and the saber school ranking competition. Based on the time, they should still be able to make it if they rush back now. Xiaochen used the freedom wings and so close yet worlds apart continuously. Finally, he managed to send by over before the competition began. However, Xiaochen was not as lucky. The saber school ranking competition had already ended 7 days ago. The saber sovereign Wu Xiaoyan's first disciple, Wen Ziren, successfully made it into the top 10. News of this had already spread throughout the entire profound domain, spreading his name everywhere. Xiaochen felt somewhat nervous as he arrived at Sword Forging Peak. He did not know if Situ Leihong would be able to accommodate him or not. Sword Forging Peak was the same as before. Swordsmen seeking Situ Leihong to forge swords lined up from the top of the mountain to the bottom in an orderly fashion. Xiaochen did not line up. Instead, he headed for the sword forging mountain manor at the top of the mountain amidst everyone's gazes. Its Chun came. And came. White-robed Xiaochen defeated the first disciple of the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyan in Heavenly Cauldron City 4 months ago. He probably earned a lot at the longevity fruit auction 3 months ago. I remember that a few old quasi-emperors rushed over and pushed the price of the longevity fruit to a sky-high price. Several great grandmaster-level martial sages did not manage to buy it. However, it is strange. The saber school ranking is held once every 10 years. Given his strength, he should have a chance to make it into the top 10. Why is he not there? If it were in the past, the name Xiaochen would have been somewhat distant to the people of the profound domain. However, Xiaochen had easily defeated the Purple Knight Sword Sect's Ouyangfeng at Sword Forging Peak. Then he held a high-profile auction for the longevity fruit. After that, he defeated the Sword Sovereign's Chen Chen's first disciple in Heavenly Cauldron City. The most famous person in the profound domain was none other than Xiaochen. Along the way, Xiaochen listened to the discussions around him without showing any expression. He had something on his mind. He wanted to meet Situ Leihong quickly, but he did not know how to bring it up when he did. Suddenly, Xiaochen felt 2 pairs of eyes filled with hatred and murderous intent. They did not hide their murderous intent at all as they stared at him. Xiaochen turned his head and looked in the direction of the gaze. His lips curled up involuntarily, revealing a smile. The owner of this gaze was the person who wanted to teach Xiaochen a lesson when he first arrived at Sword Forging Peak. In the end, Xiaochen ended up getting slapped in the face by Ouyangfeng, who got slapped down by his own senior. There was an old man beside Ouyangfeng. This old man also wore the robes of the Purple Knight Sword Sect and looked very similar to Ouyangfeng. Based on this appearance, it was not hard to guess that they were father and son. This old man was a great grandmaster-level martial sage. He was in high spirits, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. This old man did not look old at all. His eyes were like swords. Everywhere he looked, it was like a sharp sword piercing through space. Xiaochen took a glance and lost interest. It was best not to provoke this old man. Otherwise, he would not mind using a great grandmaster-level martial sage to test his strength and see how strong he was. After taking a few steps, Xiaochen overtook the 2 of them. "Stop right there." Ouyangfeng whispered a few words into the old man's ear, and that old man's expression turned extremely unsightly. Then he shouted coldly, stopping Xiaochen. Xiaochen could not be bothered with this old man, so he continued walking forward. Whoosh! The purple-robed old man was enraged. He took a big stride forward and arrived in front of Xiaochen. Then he said, "Little friend, did you not hear what this old man said? This one is telling you to stop." Xiaochen did not mind. He smiled and said, "My legs are under my feet. What does it have to do with you whether I stop or not? You have a sharp tongue. Let this old man ask you. For months ago, did you use your strength to bully the weak, sow dissension, and injure my son?" The purple-robed old man asked with an overbearing aura. Indeed, they were really father and son. With this, Xiaochen probably could not enter the mountain manor directly. However, Xiaochen did not show any fear. He smiled gently and said, "What you said is true. However, did I injure your son? How come I don't remember? I think it was just a gentle touch. At that time, many people could prove it. Your old friend, Diao Jintao, could prove it as well." At the mention of this matter, the purple-robed old man could not stop the rage in his eyes from spewing out. He spent a lot of effort to calm himself down. If not for the purple-robed old man running around seeking miraculous medicinal pills, Xiaochen would not be able to recover without at least half a year. To think that the purple-robed old man was not embarrassed to say that it was just a gentle touch. As for that Diao Jin Tao, this was the name that the purple-robed old man did not want to hear the most. For the sake of a longevity fruit, Diao Jin Tao disregarded their relationship of many years and directly sent Ouyang Fengfan tumbling down the mountain. This was simply an extraordinary humiliation. Good, very good. In that case, this old man will gently touch you as well. After the purple-robed old man said this through clenched teeth, he no longer suppressed his rage. He stepped forward and sent a palm strike at Xiaochen. The purple-robed old man thought that it would be too degrading for him, a great grandmaster-level martial sage, to draw his sword to deal with a junior. However, the purple-robed old man relied on his huge advantage in cultivation to send a palm strike over. When the palm strike flew out, the wind howled. At the level of great grandmaster-level martial sage, a casual palm strike could break mountains. Furthermore, this palm strike was sent out in rage. The surging palm wind combined with the purple-robed old man's mountain-like heavy aura. Before the palm wind arrived, a huge pressure already pressed down. Several of the people behind Xiaochen could not help but move back. However, Xiaochen himself did not move at all. When he saw the horrifying aura of the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva, the might of the purple-robed old man's palm strike was like child's play to Xiaochen. Since the other party was being arrogant and did not even draw his sword, then there was no need for him to draw his sword. Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, deities descending, 20 dragon force. Dragon roars resounded, and 20 huge dragon-shaped strands of energy appeared behind Xiaochen. They soared up and down, stirring up the sky and making the sky change color. They roared in unison, and dragon might covered the sky, not giving the purple-robed old man any chance to regret. When Xiaochen faced this palm strike that was as fast as a storm and as mighty as a mountain, he took a step forward and met it head-on. Bang! When the fist and palm met, a horrifying sound rang out. Xiaochen's punch sent the purple-robed old man flying back. The purple-robed old man's eyes widened in shock. He opened his mouth and vomited a mouthful of blood. After the purple-robed old man landed, he felt incredible pain in his right hand. Cracks spread out on his bones. His entire right arm was temporarily crippled. Xiaochen stood upright with his hands behind his back. He smiled and said, "I'm sorry, old sir. My body is very brittle and cannot be touched. I am not like your son, who has thick skin." After smiling faintly, Xiaochen swaggered off. The purple-robed old man trembled in anger. However, he had been too careless this time. His right hand was temporarily crippled, and he could not hold a sword at all. Even if the purple-robed old man wanted to take revenge, he did not have the strength to continue fighting. The other swordsmen lining up on the mountain all showed extremely grave expressions. The purple-robed old man, Ouyang Long, was a bona fide great grandmaster-level martial sage. However, even such a great grandmaster-level martial sage wanted to bully the weak. Yet, with one punch from Xiaochen, he did not dare to retaliate. When the purple-robed old man saw the other party swagger off, he did not even dare to give chase. How unfortunate. This Xiaochen is not participating in the Saber School Rankings competition. What a pity. With such strength, he can definitely compete with one Xiren. In the past few years, the momentum of my Sword Dao lineage has been completely suppressed by the Saber Dao lineage. When Xiren already suppressed the profound domain's younger generation swordsmen to the point where they could not even raise their heads. Now another Xiaochen appeared. Ha! If only Yan Shisan were here. With Yan Shisan's strength and talent, he would definitely be able to compete with those two. Yan Shisan is obsessed with the Sword Dao. He has never been interested in the sword school ranking. He is nowhere to be found. Even the Yan clan does not know where he is. The swordsmen present all gave the purple-robed old man some face. Even after Xiaochen sent him flying with one punch, no one mocked him. Ouyang Feng walked over to the purple-robed old man and grumbled. "Father, what's wrong with you? Why are you speaking so much nonsense? Just go up and chop him down with one strike." Pa. Ouyang Long was already upset after losing so much face. When he heard Ouyang Feng's grumbling, he immediately slapped Ouyang Feng. "Shut up." Ouyang Long's expression turned extremely cold. He could not be bothered with Ouyang Feng anymore. He sat down cross-legged and circulated his energy to treat his injuries, quickly recovering from the injuries on his right arm. Ouyang Long was prepared to wait for Xiaochen to come out. At that time, he would not give Xiaochen a chance and would directly fight him with his sword. If Ouyang Long could not defeat Xiaochen today, he could forget about staying in the profound domain in the future. Inside Sword Forging Manor, when Xiaochen saw Situ Leihong's calm appearance, he did not know what to say. After all, back then, Xiaochen had said that he would help the other party obtain the 10,000-year-old flame crystal. Now he was going back on his word. Furthermore, he needed the other party's help. After thinking for a while, Situ Leihong still did not say anything. Xiaochen could only probe. "Senior, I'm sorry about the 10,000-year-old flame crystal. I came late." Chapter 981. Situ Leihong smiled and said, "It's fine. I knew about it long ago and already made arrangements." "What arrangements?" "When Xiren just agreed to your challenge. He will fight you 7 days from now. The wager is the 10,000-year-old flame crystal," Situ Leihong said unhurriedly. Xiaochen exclaimed in shock. "Challenge? When was that? How come I don't remember challenging him?" Situ Leihong did not act like a senior at all. He smiled and said, "I helped you make the challenge. Why don't you agree? If you don't agree, I can cancel it." Xiaochen was speechless. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Senior is really considerate." Well said, well said. There is no need to thank me for this. Just help me get the 10,000-year-old flame crystal," Situ Leihong said casually, waving his hand. To think that Xiaochen had been on tenterhooks for a long time. However, Situ Leihong had already made arrangements for him. "I will hand the 10,000-year-old flame crystal to Senior 7 days from now. I will leave the lunar shadow saber to Senior." After thinking for a while, Xiaochen took out the lunar shadow saber, the 3-life stone, the Permetha flower, and the soul-returning grass. Situ Leihong nodded and waved his hand. "Wait for the good news. You don't have to worry about me. Let's go. I will not send you off." Since Situ Leihong sent him off with tea, naturally, Xiaochen did not intend to remain. Xiaochen was still thinking about the results of the longevity fruits auction. He did not know how much wealth it had brought him, and whether he could use it to buy some secret treasures containing dragon souls. For when Xiren to be able to enter the top 10 of the Saber School ranking, he definitely had the strength to defeat great grandmaster level martial sages. However, Xiaochen did not know how strong he was. Xiaochen needed to asking Qiong about all these things. He had to meet the other party quickly. The moment Xiaochen left the mountain manor, he did not have time to think. A resplendent sword light shot at him like a meteor tearing through the sky. Xiaochen narrowed his eyes and quickly materialized the flawless saber Dao. He used his body as a saber and his hand as the edge. With one move, the saber changed hundreds of times. His hair, clothes, shoulders, and arms. There was not a single part that was not a saber. A boundless saber hum resounded throughout the sky. As Xiaochen's hair fluttered, he thrust his finger forward and clashed with this sword light. Bang! A purple energy burst forth from Xiaochen's fingertips. A thunderous roar resounded as the 100-meter sword light shattered. The purple-clad old man, Ouyang Long, had been storing up power and waiting for a long time. Yet Xiaochen broke it with a finger. Xiaochen's figure flashed and he arrived in midair. When he met Ouyang Long's gaze, he felt incomparably furious. He said coldly, "Your skin is extraordinarily thick. A great grandmaster-level martial sage actually sneak-attacked me." Ouyang Long's right hand had already recovered, and he was holding a 4-foot-long sword that gleamed with a cold light. A boundless sword intent flowed out from the tip of the sword, and the sword wind howled. It came and went without a trace for 5 kilometers, stirring up the clouds in all directions. He said in a cold voice, "Cut the crap. If you cannot get past me today, you can forget about leaving Sword Forging Peak." The swordsmen below looked at each other. They did not expect Ouyang Long to be so angry. This time, Xiao Chun is in trouble. Earlier, Ouyang Long did not use his sword and got injured in his carelessness. Now he is probably serious. Youth should not show off too much. If Xiao Chun had taken Ouyang Long's palm strike and let him get back at him, this matter might have passed. Ouyang Long has cultivated for 400 years and is a great grandmaster-level martial sage of the sword Dao. If he used his full strength, there would not be any suspense in dealing with a junior. As the discussions rang out, everyone shook their heads. They did not think much of Xiao Chun. When a great grandmaster-level martial sage truly got angry, the energy that burst out would be a horrifying scene. Ouyang Feng, who was below, was incredibly excited. His father finally used his full strength. This time, it would be easy. As long as Xiao Chun's hand was injured, Ouyang Feng would personally step forward and ruthlessly stomp on Xiao Chun's face to wash away his shame. Otherwise, the anger in his heart would never dissipate. Don't blame this old man for bullying the weak today. I'll give you 3 moves. As long as you can receive these 3 moves, this grudge will be written off. Ouyang Long said expressionlessly. Xiao Chun's expression turned extremely sullen. He found it very funny. Written off. Such an overbearing attitude made it seem like he was the one in the wrong. Back then, on Sword Forging Peak, Ouyang Feng had been mocking Xiao Chun, attacking with vicious moves. Xiao Chun had endured many times before he was forced to make a move. Even when he made a move, he did not take Xiao Chun's life. Today, the same scene happened on Sword Forging Peak. Xiao Chun was careless and got injured, unable to even hold his sword. As long as Xiao Chun took another step forward, he would have been able to defeat Xiao Chun in a sorry state. However, Xiao Chun did not do so. In the end, not only did Xiao Chun not appreciate his kindness, but after he recovered, he disregarded his status and sneak-attacked Xiao Chun. Furthermore, he pretended to be righteous, saying that he would settle this grudge in 3 moves. How laughable! How extremely laughable! A white-robed figure flew sharply in the air. As his long hair fluttered, it revealed a delicate face with a Neptune headscarf. His facial features were distinct and hid a hidden sharpness. Whoosh! Xiao Chun removed the blue headscarf from his forehead, and his aura suddenly changed. Xiao Chun's originally delicate and reserved face immediately turned sharp. The state of kingship was incredibly tyrannical. A smile appeared on Xiao Chun's face. He said, "What a good settling this grudge in 3 moves. Ouyang Long, you really think highly of yourself. What do you have to settle this grudge with me in 3 moves? Today I will defeat you in 3 moves. It is fine if this grudge is not settled." Right after Xiao Chun spoke, his will of thunder, which contained his great perfection saber soul, surged out with boundless might. A light flashed on Xiao Chun's forehead, and a purple lightning talisman hovered above his head. Immediately, thunderclouds churned in the sky for 5 kilometers around. As they moved up and down, lightning flashed and thunder roared. There was a boundless sharpness in these berserk thunderclouds. It was like the thunderclouds for 5 kilometers around were an inextinguishable treasure saber. In an instant it suppressed Ouyang Long, who unleashed his aura without holding anything back and stirred up the winds and clouds. Great perfection saber soul. The people below felt the swords in their hands tremble, about to fall out of their hands. They prostrated themselves on the ground, their expressions filled with extreme shock. It really is a great perfection saber soul. A small perfection saber soul is already sufficient to fight a great perfection sword soul. A great perfection saber soul can completely suppress Ouyang Long's small perfection sword soul. With this, he can make up for the difference in cultivation. Flawless night, perfect and flawless moon. Xiao Chun swiped his fingertip, and resplendent moonlight suddenly bloomed. The sky immediately turned dark. Back then, when Xiao Chun used his full power, this flawless bright moon had blocked Diwuk's split-second initial knowledge. Now that Xiao Chun's strength had improved significantly, and more importantly, his saber soul had reached great perfection. The might of this flawless bright moon had increased significantly. The moon on Xiao Chun's fingertip shone with a dazzling light and an overwhelming might. The light made it difficult for Ouyang Long to open his eyes. Ouyang Long's expression had long since changed. When he saw this full moon, he brandished his sword. 900 purple night sword formations appeared in the air around him. As they spun, they formed a large purple night sword formation. Boom. The bright moon on Xiao Chen's fingertip turned into a saber light and crashed into this large sword formation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sword formation lasted for a moment before crumbling in the air. Strands of sword light scattered in all directions, blasting the surrounding mountains for 50 kilometers into pieces. Only the sword chi that landed on Sword Forging Peak was easily erased by a mysterious energy. Spring, summer, autumn, wind, winter, snow. Flawless 4 seasons, growing and multiplying endlessly. After Xiao Chen's flawless bright moon broke Ouyang Long's purple night sword formation, he stood on a lightning dragon. With a flash of electric light, he charged over to Ouyang Long, who had retreated 1 kilometer. Red peach blossoms filled the sky. Peach blossoms bloomed, filling the air with a fragrance. There was no spring wind or saber light. The blazing sun was like the high noon sun, burning everything in the world. Its light was like a saber, and the blazing sun was like a sharp blade. The merciless autumn wind swept through the world, leaving nothing alive. Winter snow drifted in the air. No color could be seen for 50 kilometers around. The world was one color, and no saber light could be seen. Endless cycles, growing and multiplying endlessly. This was the first time Xiao Chen completely executed the repaired flawless 4 seasons. The various mysterious phenomena of flawless 4 seasons cycled continuously. Spring saber, summer saber, autumn saber, and winter saber. 4 sabers chopped down, cycling endlessly. In the sky, Xiao Chen forced Ouyang Long back 50 kilometers. As Xiao Chen approached, thunderclouds spread for 5 kilometers around. The thunderclouds stretched endlessly, surging with shocking thunder. Flawless blue dragon, subduing dragon, profound slash. 18 azure saber lights filled the sky and the ground, containing the subduing dragon, profound slash. As they flickered, they struck Ouyang Long at nearly the same time. Pussy. Ouyang Long vomited a mouthful of blood. This saber strike knocked him back again, landing on Sword Forging Peak with a loud bang. The surroundings fell silent. When Xiao Chen said that he would defeat Ouyang Long in 3 moves, he did so in a clean and efficient manner, not dragging his feet at all. Ouyang Feng looked at Ouyang Long, who fell back to the ground. His eyes were filled with shock, and he gaped speechlessly. The scene that Ouyang Feng imagined did not happen. His father did not beat Xiao Chen to the point where he could not retaliate. Instead, his father was defeated in 3 moves. "Father, how are you?" Ouyang Feng asked worriedly as he picked up Ouyang Long. Whoosh. A strong wind scattered, and Xiao Chen landed calmly without any expression on his face. The many swordsmen who were watching immediately opened up a path. "I'll kill you, you bastard." When Ouyang Feng saw Xiao Chen land, his eyes immediately turned bloodshot. He charged at Xiao Chen without care for anything else. His entire body was full of openings, and he did not have any technique at all. Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and his clothes fluttered. As his hair fluttered, one could hear the metallic clanging of sabers as he easily dodged Ouyang Feng. After that, Xiao Chen grabbed Ouyang Feng, who had brushed past him, and pulled him back, tossing him forcefully. The mountain peak trembled, and Ouyang Feng landed heavily on the ground. Then he vomited a large mouthful of blood, and his complexion instantly paled. When Ouyang Feng thought about the strength that Xiao Chen had just displayed, he calmed down. Now he was so frightened that his body trembled. "Xiao Chen, I admit defeat. I swear that from today onwards, I will never seek trouble for you again." As Ouyang Long watched Xiao Chen walk over, he felt fear in his heart for some reason. Then he pulled down his old face and begged for mercy. Xiao Chen's expression did not change as he stopped walking. His expression was unfathomable. Ouyang Long clenched his teeth and took off the spatial ring in his hand. He said, "These are the resources that I always carry with me. There are 3 million black astral coins and 5,000 kilograms of various divine materials in there. I only beg you to let us father and son off today. I guarantee that I will not seek trouble for you again." Chapter 982. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and grabbed the spatial ring. Then his figure flashed, and he quickly left this place. These 2 father and son were not benevolent people. Although they said that, they definitely would not do it. Xiao Chen wanted to kill the 2. However, he did not want to see blood on this sword-forging peak. After all, whether Ao Jiao could be revived depended on Situlehong. Secondly, the two had the Purple Knight Sword Sect, one of the 9 ranks of the great families, behind them. Although the Purple Knight Sword Sect's strength and accumulations were not comparable to the peak of the 9 ranks of the great families like the Haotian sect, they were in the profound domain. However, in the profound domain, offending the Purple Knight Sword Sect in the other party's main camp would be problematic. After a few flashes, Xiaochen stood on a lightning dragon and vanished from the many swordsmen of Sword Forging Peak. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Seeing the Ouyang father and son on the ground in sorry states, the other swordsmen all sighed softly. They were also swordsmen, but when they saw Ouyang Long defeated by a bladesman like Xiaochen, they all felt some resentment. To some extent, these people all held grudges against Xiaochen. If it were a regular battle, they might have made a move to help, even blocking that bladesman. However, after seeing Xiaochen's strength and sighing at the speed of his growth, these people felt apprehensive and could only watch as Xiaochen left. Furthermore, the two had brought this upon themselves for being in such a sorry state. As the saying went, the evils brought upon themselves are the hardest to bear. They would not gain much sympathy. After flying for 250 kilometers in one breath, Xiaochen casually stopped on the top of a tree. Then, he closed his eyes and replayed the earlier battle in his mind. The earlier 3 moves could all be considered martial techniques surpassing heaven-ranked. With the support of his great perfection Saber Soul, their might had more than doubled. These were Xiaochen's 3 strongest killing moves. In today's battle, he mainly relied on his great perfection Saber Soul. If not for his great perfection Saber Soul, Flawless Bright Moon would not have burst forth with such strong might, suppressing Ouyang Long's aura in one go. If Ouyang Long had comprehended a great perfection Sword Soul as well, this battle would have been even more difficult. After defeating his opponent in 3 moves, Xiaochen maintained a calm mind, gaining a clear understanding of his own strength. After a while, Xiaochen opened his eyes, and an expression of comprehension appeared in them. He pushed off the ground and left in satisfaction. 2 days later, Ying Qiong, who had received Xiaochen's message, met at the largest inn in Heavenly Cauldron, Xiaochen. Jean de Bao and Old Zhou also went with them. The 2 of them had good expressions on their faces. Clearly, they were very satisfied with the way they handled the black goods. Chen's face and said he, Dragon said. Chen said he of the 2. Lord had he and said. Xiaochen had, and Xiao had. Fatty Jean said enviously. Comparing oneself to others is really infuriating. This fat lord spent a lot of effort to sell those goods for 5 million black astral coins. You did not even do anything, and you managed to get 30 million black astral coins. However, Xiaochen did not feel too surprised. This fat lord had spent a lot of effort to sell those goods for 5 million black astral coins. You did not even do anything, and you automatically obtained 30 million black astral coins. However, Xiaochen did not feel too surprised. He had heard those swordsmen talk about it at Sword Forging Peak. A few old blue-robed emperors, who were nearing the end of their lifespans, had come to the auction of the longevity fruit. Naturally, the blue-robed emperor was wealthy. After his people died, he would gain nothing. For the sake of his lifespan, he was willing to spend money. Xiaochen drank a cup of wine and said, "I'll give you another longevity fruit. I do not have any requirements. Help me spend all 30 million black astral coins in 3 days." Kim Taeho and Lord Jiu gaped. "What do you want me to do? 30 million black astral coins? I need to spend it all in 3 days. Ying Qiong felt confused as well. Doubt filled her pretty face. "Help me collect secret treasures containing dragon souls. They have to be at least sage grade. If there are king grade ones, don't let them go, no matter how much money you have." Ying Qiong frowned slightly and said with some difficulty, "Secret treasures containing dragon souls are not easy to find. I'm afraid it will not be easy to spend these 30 million black astral coins." Xiaochen nodded and said, "I know. Incomplete secret treasures will do as well." Ying Qiong smiled and said, "Incomplete secret treasures will do as well? In that case, this will be easy. The Flourishing Heaven Pavilion has stores all over the Kunlun realm. Every year, there will be piles of incomplete secret treasures. After chatting for a while, the topic shifted to the duel between Xiao Chun and Wen Ziren. In merely 2 days, the news of Xiao Chun's duel with Wen Ziren spread throughout the entire Profound Domain. If there was anyone in the Profound Domain who could rival Xiao Chun in fame, it would naturally be Wen Ziren. The Saber School ranking was established once every 10 years. It had been passed down for tens of thousands of years since the ancient era. However, in the past 1,000 years, no one from the younger generation managed to make it into the top 10. Wen Ziren managed to make it into the top 10 despite a group of great grandmaster-level martial sages participating, obtaining the 6th rank. Once this news spread, it caused an uproar. Speaking of which, why did you think of challenging Wen Ziren? Given your character, you would not be so ostentatious, right? Ying Qiong asked with a smile. Clearly, he had guessed that there was more to it than meets the eye. Kim Tae-ho looked around and chuckled. Brother Xiao, how confident are you of winning? This fat lord will go and start the bet. If I don't take advantage of this opportunity to make some money, it would be too unfortunate. Xiao Chun entered deep thought. Then he said, I do not know much about Wen Ziren, so I can't say for sure. However, I have to win this match. Suddenly, footsteps came from downstairs. A group of guards escorted the Heavenly Cauldron City's young city lord to the top floor. When the young city lord saw Xiao Chun, he smiled faintly and tossed a heavy wooden box to the young city lord. Xiao Chun stretched out his hand and caught it. After he opened it, an overwhelming heat wave spewed out, and flames assaulted him. If not for Xiao Chun's strength being far greater than before, he would definitely be injured if he opened this box. Xiao Chun had always been extremely calm. However, when he saw this item, he could not help feeling excited. He quickly closed the box, and his expression changed somewhat. Brother Xiao, there is no need to overthink. Senior brother told me to deliver this. 5 days from now he will have a fair fight with you in Heavenly Saber City. It will be a simple fight, and he does not want you to be disturbed by anything. The item in the box was none other than the 10,000-year-old flame crystal that Xiao Chun dreamed of. Wen Ziren's breadth of mind surpassed Xiao Chun's expectations. Xiao Chun's favorable impression of this bladesman, whom he had never met before, immediately improved significantly. With the 10,000-year-old flame crystal in hand, Xiao Chun no longer felt any burden. Late at night, in the guest room, Xiao Chun looked at the wooden box containing the 10,000-year-old flame crystal, and entered deep thought. There were still 5 more days before the fight with Wen Ziren. Now that he had obtained the 10,000-year-old flame crystal, this fight would be much simpler. However, this was a fight between bladesmen. There was no need for Xiao Chun to think about the consequences of losing. Without any burden, he could just fight to his heart's content. Xiao Chun did not know what kind of person Wen Ziren was. However, at the very least, this breadth of mind greatly increased Xiao Chun's interest in this fight. After putting away the wooden box, Xiao Chun silently flew out of the window and arrived at a desolate place outside the city. If Xiao Chun wanted to test his moves, he naturally had to find a large, quiet place with no one around. An inn was definitely not an option. Xiao Chun could only go outside the city. He would return 3 days later and meet with Ying Qiong. The night was cold and desolate. Occasionally, a cold wind blew in the forest, rustling the leaves. There were still 3 more moves of the Myriad Heaven Divine Fist. Eternal Myth, Dusk of Deities, and Burial of Deities. Xiao Chun had never truly executed these 3 moves before. Even among the deity race, those who could practice these 3 moves were few and far between. Without reaching a certain age and cultivation realm, or with extraordinary comprehension ability, one would not be able to do so. The final 3 moves of the Myriad Heaven Divine Fist were also known as forbidden moves among the deity race. They possessed extremely horrifying might. They would not be any weaker than the Divine Sovereign's secret techniques that every Divine Sovereign left behind. Xiao Chun closed his eyes and allowed the magic energy in his sea of consciousness to start surging bit by bit. As he circulated the Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, motes of golden light shot out from Xiao Chun's body, illuminating the forest. The golden light gathered, and a deity statue suddenly appeared behind Xiao Chun. This deity statue looked no different from Xiao Chun. However, it looked solemn and dignified, exuding might without being angry. Eternal myth. This was Xiao Chen's own myth. The myriad heaven divine fists sang of the ancient deity sovereigns of the deity race. Xiao Chen was not a member of the deity race and did not believe in gods. If one's heart was not sincere enough, logically speaking, one would not be able to practice the myriad heaven divine fist. However, Xiao Chen blazed a different path, creating his own myth and being loyal only to himself. He did not believe in gods and only believed in himself. Who was the myth? He was the myth. Xiao Chen continuously poured such thoughts into his heart like he was hypnotizing himself. The magic energy in his sea of consciousness drained like spring water. As the magic energy drained, the deity statue behind Xiao Chen grew increasingly denser. Its figure became more realistic, and divine might gathered in its eyes. Bang! With a boom, the deity statue behind Xiao Chen grew incredibly huge. It was now 100 meters tall, like a small mountain. Finally, a trace of divine might gathered. Not a single tree remained in the forest. Under the sweep of the divine might, it turned into nothing in less than one breath. Xiao Chen's expression turned solemn. His face looked like it was carved, dignified and holy. Praises came from the air. With a thought, Xiao Chen raised his hand and slapped the air in front of him. The deity statue behind Xiao Chen stretched out its hand and slapped the air in front of it. A huge hand that covered the sky formed. This palm covered a distance of 25 kilometers. The golden light that shot out in all directions immediately illuminated the entire night sky. This palm strike seemed to make the distant sky sink by half a meter. The flat ground caved in deeply. Xiao Chen silently circulated his energy and withdrew this move. The deity statue slowly faded away. Then, Xiao Chen closed his eyes and entered deep thought. Just relying on Xiao Chen's magic energy to condense divine might was insufficient. If Xiao Chen could be like those deities of the deity race, forging deity statues in the deity domain and the lower realms, he could build temples for the people to worship and provide the power of faith. In that case, the might of this eternal myth could double. Following that, Xiao Chen started to materialize dusk of deities. This move was even more mighty, and the state it contained was even vaster and vaster. Cultivators of the deity race without strong mental energy would not be able to practice it. Normally, only those who reached the level of the blue-robed emperor were qualified to practice these two moves. Of course, this was just the qualification. Whether one could successfully practice it still required extremely high comprehension ability and a strong physical body. There was a huge difference between Dusk of Deities and Eternal Myth. Dusk of Deities did not need to condense divine might. The state that Xiao Chen needed to materialize was that of the destruction of the ancient divine kingdom, the arrival of the end of the world, the end of the myth, the fall of the gods, and the fall of prosperity. Chapter 983. From a certain point of view, this was closely related to Diwuk's split-second initial awareness. Split-second initial awareness represented the beginning of glory. That first brilliant light illuminated the darkness. The dusk of gods represented the decline of glory, the end of a legend. In that instant, the blood-stained setting sun was the final, sorrowful light of dusk before darkness descended. Xiao Chen was not in a rush to test it out. He sat cross-legged on the ground. First, the scene of Diwuk executing split-second initial awareness appeared in his mind. Following that, the scene of Diwuk summoning the Divine Kingdom image appeared. Then, the scene of the 12 keepers working together to summon the Divine Kingdom image appeared. All sorts of scenes appeared in his mind. If there were any missing parts, Xiao Chen would fill in the gaps. After sitting there for 6 hours, Xiao Chen opened his eyes. A bright light flashed in his eyes. Without getting up, he stretched out his hand and pointed forward. Late at night, the pitch-black night immediately turned into a blood-stained canvas. A dispirited setting sun hung in the distant sky. Strands of beautiful, blood-red fiery light fell to the ground like a meteor shower. Every meteor was a fallen deity. Mournful music rang out in the gloomy sky, filling the entire world with a solemn and stirring atmosphere. Bang! A strand of scarlet light shot out of Xiao Chen's fingertip and instantly tore through 5 kilometers. It looked like a waterfall in the sky, lingering for a long time. With a casual wave of his hand, all sorts of mysterious phenomena vanished. Night fell once more. The setting sun was gone, and the scarlet light no longer appeared. Only the scarlet waterfall that Xiaochen executed in the sky did not scatter. Its might still lingered, and an apocalyptic aura spread out. Everywhere the waterfall passed, all the birds and beasts within 5 kilometers fled in panic. Xiaochen slowly stood up and patted the dust off his body. Then he muttered, "This is still not enough. If I can see a deity of the deity domain fall with my own eyes, I can better materialize this solemn state. Or I can find one of the 7 thrones, the despair throne, to strengthen the power of this move." In the blink of an eye, the corners of Xiaochen's mouth curled up slightly. He smiled and said, "Having flaws means that there is room for improvement. Right now, the power of this move is basically sufficient." The myriad heaven divine fist had one last move left, the burial of deities. Compared to dusk and finality, it was an even colder and more profound state. It was the final sentence of a glorious legend. However, Xiaochen did not dare to test this move rashly. He faintly felt that there was something deeper to this move. At this moment, the myriad heaven divine fist that Xiaochen comprehended had already broken away from the introduction on the surface. He had a more complete understanding of it. Many things and details that the God Clan's experts couldn't see. He had completed them, and even added some of his own things. By relying on the large amount of divine liquid essence absorbed from the heavenly dew divine spring, Xiaochen's originally strong comprehension ability had already reached an unimaginable level. For 3 days Xiaochen stayed here, repeatedly practicing these 2 moves. Although Xiaochen did not make any major breakthroughs, he became much more familiar with executing the moves. At the very least he could execute them with a thought. With some control, he could control the timing of his attacks, drawing them back and forth as he pleased. When the appointed time with Ying Qiong arrived, Xiaochen unfurled the freedom wings and executed the magic skill. So close yet worlds apart a few times. Then he rushed back to the city in the time it took to brew a pot of tea. Inside the inn, Xiaochen sat down and drank his tea leisurely, quietly waiting for Ying Qiong to arrive. Xiaochen felt very confident in Ying Qiong's ability to handle matters. Since the other party said that he could obtain a large number of secret treasures containing dragon souls, he would definitely be able to obtain them. "Young master, someone sent a letter to this in 3 days ago." When the waiter saw Xiaochen arrive, he immediately came over happily. "A letter? Who sent it?" Xiaochen put down his teacup and tossed a black astral coin to the waiter. Then he took out the letter and did not rush to read its contents. Instead, he looked at the signature. "Senior sister from Shui Lingling," Xiaochen read softly. Then he opened the letter and read it carefully. After a while, Xiaochen put down the letter. His expression appeared somewhat unsightly. Xiaochen picked up the teacup and took a sip. A bitter taste lingered on his tongue. Haha. Young master Xiao rarely shows such an expression. Did something happen? Ying Qiong arrived with a smile on her face. Without saying anything, Xiaochen pushed the letter back to the other party. After Ying Qiong read it, her originally smiling face turned extremely angry. How can they do this? This is too much. The Shui Lingling's letter was announced to the world in Bushan Palace. 2 months later, Xiao Hoju would hold his king conferral ceremony in White Emperor City. He would be conferred the White Tiger King, but he did not mention Xiaochen at all. Ying Qiong could not help feeling angry. This was originally Xiaochen's king conferral ceremony, but the 3 holy masters' ceremony dragged on for half a year. By the time Xiao Hoju was conferred king, Xiaochen had only become a foil. At the end of the letter, Shui Lingling expressed some worry. The 3 holy masters' place seemed to have connections with the 3 sovereign noble clans of the human race: the Jiang clan, the Yan clan, and the Lin clan. They would make a move against Xiaochen during the final period, preventing him from appearing at the king conferral ceremony. "I'll send someone to escort you back." Ying Qiong also expressed his worry. If Xiaochen missed the king conferral ceremony, it would be equivalent to him giving up. It would be very difficult for him to be conferred the title of Blue Dragon King in the future. Xiaochen waved his hand and said, "There's no need. Give me the secret treasures containing the dragon soul first." The Haotian emperor had said that within 3 years, the blue-robed emperor would not make a move against Xiao Chen. This was the rule between major characters. This was a promise that Ing Zongzong had made to Xiao Chen from behind. It held great weight. Without this promise, without Ing Zongtian, who had expressed his stance long ago, Xiao Chen's path would be even more difficult than it was now. Since the blue-robed emperor could not make a move, Xiao Chen had nothing to fear. If he could not get past this hurdle, he would not have the face to participate in the king conferral ceremony. Ing Qiong gave Xiao Chen a somewhat reproachful look. Then he followed Xiao Chen's instructions and took out the secret treasures containing the dragon's soul one by one. Aside from a few complete sage-grade secret treasures, all the king-grade secret treasures were fragments. Not a single one was complete. Most of the secret treasures were damaged beyond recognition, far inferior to the half of the flood dragon scissors that Xiao Chen obtained. Seeing Xiao Chen carefully look through every secret treasure containing the dragon's soul, Ing Qiong asked somewhat nervously, "How is it? Are these enough?" In Ing Qiong's eyes, these secret treasures were basically a pile of trash. At most, the materials had some value. In the eyes of others, they were not worth mentioning. Aside from specialized blacksmiths, no cultivator would buy these things. Xiao Chen raised his head and said, "Not bad. Many thanks. There should be more than this, right?" Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Ing Qiong's somewhat worried expression vanished. He smiled and said, "There are still some left, but not much. You have not finished spending your 30 million black astral coins. In that case, it should not be a problem to increase his strength by 2 dragon force. After all, the materials of these secret treasures could not compare to the flood dragon scissors, which was once an immortal equipment. The dragon soul was also not as strong as the flood dragon spirit." Xiao Chen had not finished spending his 30 million black astral coins. As Xiao Chen had expected, secret treasures containing dragon souls were not easy to find, even if they were fragments. 3 days was indeed rather short. It was already very impressive that Ing Qiong could help Xiao Chen to this extent. If Xiao Chen had to search for them himself, he would not even be able to find half of them in 3 days. Ing Qiong stretched out his hand and tossed over a spatial ring. "I don't want your 30 million black astral coins. Most of these are discarded items piled up in the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion's warehouse. There is basically no use for them." Xiao Chen received the spatial ring. However, he did not show much joy on his face. Even the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion could only obtain a few fragments of secret treasures containing dragon souls. In that case, if Xiao Chen wanted to gather 10 dragon force and cultivate the blue dragon body nourishing art, where should he go to find these secret treasures containing dragon souls? Ing Qiong seemed to have noticed Xiao Chen's doubts. He said, "As the saying goes, dragons hide in the depths. Dragons hide in the depths of the 9 abysses. There are more secret treasures containing dragon souls in the heavenly starry ocean." The heavenly starry ocean was a vast and boundless place filled with islands, sects, and countless experts. To many of the cultivators of the Kunlun realm, it was a mysterious place. "It looks like I really have to make a trip to the heavenly starry ocean in the future," Xiao Chen thought to himself. The saying dragons hide in the depths is not wrong. After bidding farewell to Ing Qiong, Xiao Chen brought the secret treasures containing dragon souls to the guest room. Not wasting any time, he immediately circulated the blue dragon body nourishing art to consume these secret treasure fragments. There were too many of them. Xiao Chen spent an entire day before he finished consuming them all. Just as he had expected, this casual strike added 2 dragons' strength to the foundation of 3 dragons' strength. Collecting secret treasures containing dragon souls was indeed a shortcut for cultivating the blue dragon body nourishing art. Xiao Chen stood up and checked his strength. Then, he revealed a satisfied expression. With 5 dragon force in a casual strike, he could barely exchange moves with a great grandmaster level martial sage without using a martial technique. By circulating deities descending, he could fight a great grandmaster level martial sage without needing to multiply his combat prowess tenfold, saving a lot of energy. Xiao Chen took out the wooden box containing the 10,000-year-old flame crystal again. Then he revealed a grave expression as he muttered to himself. "Ao Jiao should be back by now, right?" Given Situ Leihong's abilities, 4 days should be more than enough to revive Ao Jiao. Let's go. Not suppressing the anticipation in his heart, Xiao Chun leaped out of the window and executed the freedom wings so close yet worlds apart magic skill, flying toward sword forging peak. With each step, Xiao Chun traveled 50 kilometers. Now he was close to 1,000 kilometers. After taking 10 odd steps, sword forging peak came into view. Xiao Chun rushed up the mountain. His hurried pace stunned the many swordsmen of sword forging peak. Xiao Chun had entered sword forging peak many times. The swordsmen who came here all saw Xiao Chun remain calm and collected. Even when facing the mocking of a great grandmaster-level martial sage, Xiao Chun did not get angry. At the very least, he did not show it on the surface. His pace had never been so hurried. When the swordsmen looked at Xiao Chun's expression, they could easily capture a trace of nervousness. What exactly happened? Why is the white-robed Xiao Chun in such a rush? Could it be that he is under too much pressure from the upcoming duel? I heard that when Xiren is in the limelight this time, several older generation great grandmaster level martial sages fell to his saber. The younger generation bladesmen are indeed at their peak in the past few years. Unfortunately, although there are many outstanding talents of the sword Dao, there are no peak experts who can match them aside from Yan Shisan, whose whereabouts are unknown. The rarely seen nervousness on Xiao Chun's face and his hurried expression confused the swordsmen, causing them to speculate. Chapter 984. After entering the mountain manor, the bellboy led Xiao Chun to Situ Leihong, who had a calm expression as he hugged the lunar shadow saber and drank tea. Ah, little friend Xiao Chun is here. What's wrong? You feel that you cannot defeat Wen Xiren, so you want to take the saber back in advance? I'll have to disappoint you. Without the 10,000-year-old flame crystal, I will not give you this saber. Situ Leihong smiled, but his tone did not change at all. Before Situ Leihong finished speaking, the lunar shadow saber in his embrace started trembling intensely. The force far surpassed Situ Leihong's expectations. Whoosh! The saber shot out. Xiao Chun stretched out his hand and caught the flying lunar shadow saber. Then he closed his eyes and felt it. He saw a familiar figure within the lunar shadow saber. This person's eyes were tightly shut as she floated on the lake. At first, Xiao Chun rejoiced. However, he called out in his heart. However, Ao Jiao did not open her eyes. He could not help but ask anxiously, "Senior, what's going on?" Situ Leihong grabbed with a flip of his hand, and a strong suction pulled the lunar shadow saber back into his grasp. Only then did he reveal a satisfied expression. Bang! However, in less than a second, the lunar shadow saber struggled free again and flew toward Xiao Chun. Damn! Situ Leihong cursed without the air of a grandmaster. Is this fellow that good? This old man went through a lot of trouble to save you. After cursing, Situ Leihong saw the worried expression on Xiao Chun's face. He smiled and said, "Brat, don't be unaware of your blessings. This is her fortuitous encounter. When she wakes up, this saber of yours will have a chance of ranking high on the divine weapon ranking." When Xiao Chun heard that, he immediately revealed an irrepressible expression of joy. He did not care whether he could rank high on the divine weapon ranking or not. As long as Ao Jiao really came back to life, everything would be fine. Senior Situ, I will never forget this great kindness. Xiao Chun knelt on one knee and performed a cupped fist salute to Situ Leihong. A man would not kneel even if he had money. He would kneel to the heavens, the earth, and his parents. Other than that, even if you beat him to death, Xiao Chun would never kneel to a third person. However, no matter what, Situ Leihong could accept Xiao Chun's kneel, could accept Xiao Chun's bow for Ao Jiao. Situ Leihong's smiling face was embarrassed by Xiao Chun's kneeling. With a wave of his hand, he helped Xiao Chun up. He said helplessly, "You brat, you're really..." Unable to continue, Situ Kai sighed and said, "I have seen countless people in my life. You are the only one who dares to be so stubborn over a saber. Take the saber. You can use it without worry now. With the help of this saber, your chances of victory in the fight with Wen Xiren will increase by 20%. Xiao Chun thought of something and handed the wooden box containing the 10,000-year-old flame crystal to Situ. When Situ Leihong opened the wooden box and took a look, his expression changed slightly. He smiled and said, "This Wu Xiaoyan's disciple is an interesting person. This battle is going to be interesting. Let's go, let's go. There's no need to be pretentious." Suddenly, Sita Leihong glanced around and saw Xiaochen preparing to draw his saber in the hall. Startled, he put down the 10,000-year-old flame crystal and shouted, "Don't move!" Boom! Before Sita Leihong finished speaking, he saw a flash of light. The saber light shattered the entire hall in one breath of time. A strand of saber light soared into the clouds within the mountain manor, tearing through 50 kilometers of clouds and piercing into the sky. The long line of swordsmen at Sword Forging Peak looked up in shock, not understanding what was going on. The swords in the hands of several swordsmen rang out as they broke. The entire Sword Forging Peak turned chaotic. Outside the famous heavenly saber city of the profound domain, there was a lake called Nine Dragons Lake. The lake water was clear and boundlessly vast. When one looked into the distance, they could not see the end of the fog. There were 9 mountain peaks around the lake. They were very tall and looked like huge dragons soaring into the clouds. The mountain peaks looked like dragons. However, the dragons that each mountain peak looked like were different. They all had very distinct characteristics. According to rumor, these 9 mountain peaks were formed by the divine dragons of the immortal epoch. In the distant past, someone once heard the mountains roar like a dragon roar, stirring and mournful. This made the legend of the mountain peaks being formed by the divine dragons seem somewhat ethereal. The mountain peaks were very tough, able to withstand a strike from the blue-robed emperor without collapsing. Each mountain peak suppressed a peak spirit vein. Back then, when the sword and saber clashed, before the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian and the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyan advanced to martial emperor, they fought 9 times on this 9 Dragons Lake. They had fought 9 times on the 9 Dragons Lake, and all 9 times they had ended in a draw. They had become lifelong rivals. The last time the two fought on 9 Dragons Lake, they had advanced to the blue-robed emperor at that time. They each represented the peak rising talents of the sword and saber factions of the profound domain. That battle was very soul-stirring and exciting. Even after thousands of years, it was still a well-known story, praised by everyone. The result of the battle was still a draw, but at the end of the battle. However, at the end of the battle, the two used their comprehensions to break through the bottleneck of Emperor Wu at the same time, both becoming emperors. In the sky, there were 2 descending roads of emperor, and 2 people were running together. At the same time, they stepped onto the peak and pushed open their respective doors to Emperor Wu, stepping onto the Great Tao. It was also that battle that caused the originally unknown 9 Dragon Lake to become the famous Holy Land of duels in the Xian region. The standards were extremely high. Later, because of the frequent duels, Heavenly Saber City set a rule that only blue-robed emperor-level existences could duel here. Perhaps there really was a mysterious spiritual energy in this place. Many years later, a few more people advanced to martial emperor after dueling here, making 9 Dragons Lake even more famous. However, the grand feat of the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyan and the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian advancing to martial emperor together never happened again. Today, another duel would take place at 9 Dragons Lake, opening the door for 2 bladesmen of the younger generation. Neither side of the duel was as strong as the blue-robed emperor. However, they still allowed the duel to take place at 9 Dragons Lake. The reason was none other than the 2 people's names. One was the white-robed Xiaochen, and the other was the saber sovereign's disciple, Wenziren. At this moment, countless large ships and flying spirit beasts floated above the white clouds outside the mountain peak. Even more cultivators stood there. All of them looked into the distance, towards the center of 9 Dragons Lake. A blue-clad cultivator sat cross-legged in the center of the lake. This youth had delicate features and looked spotless. He exuded an ethereal air from head to toe. A long saber floated quietly on the water's surface beside the youth's left hand. Simple and unadorned patterns were carved on the saber's scabbard. The complicated patterns gave off an ancient aura. An ancient word was carved on both sides of the saber's hilt: Luo River. Around the blue-clad youth were a few water people the size of a cultivator. They were currently fighting each other, practicing some kind of profound saber technique. While the blue-clad youth looked like he was resting, in reality, he did not relax at all. He made full use of every spare moment to cultivate. Several people on the ship above the clouds would occasionally turn their heads to look into the distance. Their expressions of anticipation contained some excitement and nervousness. However, every time they turned their heads back, they were disappointed. As time passed, they could not help feeling somewhat anxious. Strange, when Xiren arrived early in the morning. Why is there no sign of Xiaochen yet? It is almost noon already. This is too worrying. Naturally, the cultivators who rushed over after hearing the news were here to watch the duel between Xiaochen and Wen Xiren. However, no one showed up after so long. It was hard to avoid feeling anxious. Could it be that the recent rumors are right? The saber in Xiaochen's hand is just a decoration, completely crippled? The rumors have been spreading rather ferociously recently. I heard that Xiaochen was severely injured in the 9 layers of purgatory, and has been suppressing his injuries, unable to fight for long. I even heard that after Xiaochen defeated Ouyang Long in 3 moves on Sword Forging Peak, he immediately vomited 3 liters of blood. I don't know who started the bet recently, but the payout for Xiaochen is already 1-3. In the end, all the bets are on Wen Xiren. It looks like something is indeed wrong. Fortunately, I resisted the temptation and bet all 500,000 black astral coins on Wen Xiren. Me too. I bet half of my 1 million black astral coins on Wen Xiren. No matter what, Wen Xiren's strength has always been stable. His performance in this Saber School ranking competition spoke for itself. His chances of victory are at least 50%. As for Xiaochen, it is hard to say. When bets were placed for duels, especially for famous ones, there would normally be people opening bets. This was not a rare thing in the Kunlun realm. At this moment, the sun was high in the sky. Noon was about to pass, but there was still no sign of Xiaochen. Everyone could not help feeling suspicious. Above the white clouds, on the deck of the profound Domain Xing clan's warship, Kim Taeho continuously calculated the bets he had received since the bets opened. Lord Jiu stood at the side, clearly excited. The amount of bets was unexpectedly large. If the results were as Fatso said, they would have made a huge profit this time. However, if they lost, not only would they have to pay back all the astral coins they obtained from selling the illegal goods, but they would also have to work for the Ying clan for the rest of their lives to repay the debt. The 2 of them were not famous. Naturally, they had to find someone to vouch for them. Kim Taeho had a glib tongue, getting Ying Qiong to vouch for them. Hence, the bets opened smoothly. Lord Jiu said nervously. Why does this Lord Jiu feel a little nervous? Fatso, aren't you going overboard with this rumor? What if Xiaochen really loses? Kim Taeho shouted. How can that be? 3 days ago, a strand of saber chi destroyed most of the manor on Sword Forging Peak. Others might not know, but this fat lord is absolutely certain that the lunar shadow saber has completely recovered. However, Ying Qiong, who was at the side, smiled softly and said, that is hard to say. Even if the lunar shadow saber is unsheathed and Xiaochen's strength increases significantly, Wen Xiren's river water saber is not something to be trifled with. The saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian put in a lot of effort to enter the divine weapon ranking in the future for the sake of this river water saber. Kim Taeho said embarrassedly, little sister, don't scare this fat lord. If this fat lord loses, the one who will suffer the greatest loss will be you. A crafty look flashed in Ying Qiong's eyes as she sized up Kim Taeho. Then she nodded and smiled. Don't worry. This lady naturally has a way to recoup my losses from you. You better pray to God and Buddha to protect yourself. What are you trying to do? This fat lord is not selling his body, Kim Taeho said as he quickly took a few steps back, feeling flustered from Ying Qiong's gaze. Ying Qiong could not help laughing. She burst out in laughter and said, dream on. With all that fat on your body, how much is 1 kilogram? Ka, ka, ka. The water figures materializing mysterious martial techniques around the blue-robed bladesman when Xiren suddenly shattered, turning into droplets of rain falling from the sky. Such a change instantly attracted everyone's attention. When Xiren opened his eyes and grasped the river water saber beside him, then he slowly stood up and stared at the empty water in front. Chapter 985. He was as gentle as water as he stood quietly on the water. His facial features were not considered handsome, but his sharpness was withdrawn. It was like he had merged with the entire Nine Dragons Lake. The Tao was natural, and the saber was like the Tao. He was like a treasured saber that drifted with the waves. Bang! The space in front folded up. The mountains and rivers turned hazy and indistinct. A white figure took a step forward in an extremely distant place. In the next moment, he stood on the lake, 1 kilometer away from Wenziren. Ing Qiong's gaze immediately shifted over, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Xiaochen is here. He finally came. If he had come any later, the sun would have set. Haha. Right now, our profound domain's bladesmen firmly suppress the swordsmen. Today, the battle between two peak rising talents will definitely be a feast for the eyes. Xiaochen's appearance allowed everyone to heave a sigh of relief. Otherwise, the long-awaited duel would be ruined. Everyone would feel that it was a pity. Sorry for the delay, so I came late. Xiaochen said apologetically as he performed a cupped fist salute after sizing up Wenziren. It is not too late to come before the sun sets. How about competing with the saber first? Wenziren's aura was like water, but his character was extremely decisive. He did not hesitate at all. The moment he arrived, he immediately prepared for the duel. From a certain point of view, Wenziren was very similar to Xiaochen. They were both people who did not like to speak nonsense. Xiaochen nodded to indicate that he had no objections. Then, the two's right hands silently grasped their saber hilts at the same time. At this moment, the two's auras suddenly changed. In that instant, all of their sharpness exploded out. Thousands of sabers clashed, resounding over the vast lake, clanging endlessly. Thousands upon thousands of water pillars containing boundless saber intent soared into the sky above the lake, soaring into the clouds. A resplendent light as bright as the sun shone. The lunar shadow sword and the river water left the two's right hands at the same time, shooting forward like meteors. Just like that, the atmosphere of a great battle suddenly descended. No one expected the two to be so decisive, starting the duel without saying anything. What was a duel of sabers? Bladesmen were no stranger to this. Simply put, it was drawing one's saber in an instant. The moment they clashed in midair, whoever's saber was knocked away would be the loser. This seemingly simple action contained too many factors. Aura, cultivation, will saber soul, the angle at which the saber was drawn, the control of the environment, and everyone's comprehension of saber techniques. The slightest mistake would put him at a disadvantage in the saber competition. In addition to the above, there was another very important factor, which was the saber itself. When an ordinary saber clashed with a high-grade famed saber, it went without saying who had the upper hand. In a situation where both sides had similar talents, the saber itself was the deciding factor in a saber duel. Seeing Xiaochen agree to Wenziren's request without hesitation, the many cultivators watching outside the white clouds were all startled. Who in the profound domain did not know that Wenziren's river water saber was personally forged by the saber sovereign, Wu Xiaotian? The materials used and the effort put in were all for the divine weapon ranking. Although it was only a sub-divine weapon now, as long as it advanced to a divine weapon, it would charge into the divine weapon ranking. It would become one of the 10 great divine weapons. The divine might it contained rivaled that of a primordial emperor treasure. The famed river water saber was famous everywhere. In the past few years, this saber had chopped down countless older generation cultivators. Who knew how many treasures had been chopped in half by the river water saber? During the saber school ranking competition, Wenziren had used this saber to chop down 8 great grandmaster level martial sages, ranking within the top 10 of the saber school ranking. This had also pushed the prestige of this saber to the peak. This Xiaochen is too arrogant. To think that he really dares to compete with Wenziren. How unfortunate. Originally, I was looking forward to this battle. Now there is nothing to see. If his saber is not good, he could have just said so. Why the need to be stubborn? Given Wenziren's character, he will definitely give up on competing with the saber. Both sides will fight with sabers of the same quality. With that, he still wants to participate in the king conferral ceremony. I think he should stop embarrassing himself. Haha. Who cares? I bet on Wenziren winning. That's true. Rumors spread everywhere. Many bladesmen expressed that it was a pity. These people could not be blamed for having such one-sided discussions. This was because the fame of the river water saber had flourished in the profound domain in the past few years. Lord Jiu's ears were very sharp. When he heard the discussions around, he could not help but feel even more uncertain. Fatso, are your words accurate or not? At this moment, Kim Tae-ho felt uncertain as well. He could not help but look at Ing Cheong. Ing Cheong's expression turned grave as he muttered to himself. This is rather strange. Given Wenziren's character, he would not ask to compete with his saber despite knowing that his saber is better. What's going on? When Kim Tae-ho heard that, he immediately showed a bitter expression. It's over. This fat lord is really going to fail this time. Regardless of what the others were discussing, the lunar shadow saber above the lake. The lunar shadow saber gave off a resplendent purple light. Electricity gathered and spun in the air, creating strands of flickering electricity. This caused the sky to turn dark for some reason. When Xiao Chun looked up, thunderclouds spread out in the sky as the lunar shadow saber danced. The surging thunderclouds were like true dragons swimming with the saber, breathing and swallowing the clouds. The wind, clouds, thunder, and lightning in the surroundings all moved with it. When Xiao Chun swung his saber, the world moved. Xiao Chun grasped the essence of the saber perfectly. However, the more this was so, the more the spectating cultivators felt it was a pity. Such exquisite saber skills were sufficient to prove that Xiao Chun lived up to his reputation. However, the saber in his hand was not up to par. He would definitely lose if he competed with the saber. Several people even sighed softly. It was not for anything else but because there would be one less exciting battle between bladesmen. This might become a regret of their lives. On the other side, Wenziren's saber was as gentle as water. It had a gentle aura, like flowing water. However, as Wenziren drew his saber, the aura of this saber also changed in an instant. The roar of a mountain torrent erupted between the heavens and the earth, covering the surroundings and competing with the sound of thunder. The saber spun endlessly. Watery clouds covered the sky, and a heavy downpour fell. The rainwater was like a saber. When it landed on the water, it sounded like many treasured sabers humming and trembling. The falling rainwater turned into thousands of strands hidden at the bottom of the lake. As the undercurrents surged, the humming of the saber sounded like a powerful dragon roar, lingering on endlessly. It resonated with the watery clouds in the sky, resisting the 50 kilometers of thunderclouds bearing fangs and claws together. The famed saber, the river water, fell into the water like a saber. Amid the cool breeze and drizzle, the blue-robed Wenziren stood on the surface of the lake, looking spotless. As he did so, a dragon roar sounded. Time seemed to stop on this 9 dragons lake. Xiao Chun and Wenziren stood calmly on the water. The horrifying, mysterious phenomenon in the surroundings did not affect them at all. It was like the hearts of bladesmen, absolutely calm and rational. Nothing could disturb them. As the 2 spinning sabers approached each other, several of the spectating cultivators in the sky could not help but close their eyes, unwilling to watch. The result was set from the very start. Without a divine weapon, what saber in the world could defeat the famed river water saber in a competition of sabers? Ing Cheong's heart could not help pounding heavily. Anxiety appeared in his eyes as he muttered to himself. This idiot. That is the famed river water saber, a treasure saber that the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian forged for the sake of breaking into the divine weapon ranking. Isn't he very smart all along? Why did he agree to compete with the saber without thinking? Of course, time would not really stop. However, the 2 sabers storing up power gave others the misconception that time had slowed down. What would come would come. The instant the 2 sabers were about to clash, they suddenly accelerated. They were as fast as a glimpse, surpassing the speed of most cultivators' eyes. Then they quickly clashed. Before everyone could understand what was going on, they heard a crisp sound coming from the center of the lake. Where the 2 sabers clashed, a light encased them. Electricity flickered as 2 dragons clashed. The water spout soared into the sky and instantly swept up the 2 sabers, turning the chaotic situation even more chaotic. For a moment, no one could see what was going on. Thunderclouds and water clouds clashed in the sky. Loud sounds reverberated in all directions. Layers of clouds scattered like the sky was shattering, looking exceptionally scary. The undercurrent of the dragon roars on the surface of the lake, under when Xiren's feet slowly faded. Ripples spread across the surface of the lake, and waves surged wildly. When Xiren moved up and down with the waves. At some point in time, blood leaked out of a corner of his lips. What's going on? When everyone saw the blood at the corner of when Xiren's lips, and then looked at the calm white-robed Xiao Chun, they suddenly felt that something was wrong. However, at the place where the two sabers clashed, light flashed, and dragon roars rang out endlessly. No one could see the result clearly. Someone whispered. The instant the two sabers clashed, I seemed to hear the sound of a saber breaking. Could it be that someone's saber broke? That should be Xiao Chen's saber, the famed river water saber. If a divine weapon does not appear, no saber can break it. It looks like after Xiao Chen's saber broke, when Xiren was significantly injured as well. That makes sense. How unfortunate. This is truly unfortunate. Although I do not want to say it, white-robed Xiao Chun lost unjustly. No one believed that the river water saber could break. Since a saber broke, it had to be Xiao Chen's saber. Kim Taeho looked around and laughed loudly. He fanned himself and said, "Little sister Ing Cheong, this fat lord is going to relieve himself. My stomach is disappointing." Sensing that something was wrong, Fatso quickly tried to flee. However, he had only taken one step when a few Ing clan cultivators blocked his way with murderous expressions. Bang! Lord Jiu, who had slipped out earlier, was tossed back to the deck. He had an awkward smile on his face. When Fatso saw the situation, he immediately shut his mouth and squatted on the ground with a bitter expression. If one did not know better, one would think that he was constipated. Ing Cheong ignored these two clowns. Her pretty face was filled with uncertainty, disappointment and worry. Bang! The chaotic scene in the center of the lake slowly scattered. The waterspout fell back to the surface, and the thunderclouds and watery clouds in the sky also vanished. A beam of sunlight descended, and a bright light shone. Under the blazing sun, the surface of the lake shimmered, making it look very bright. After everything calmed down, only a saber remained hovering above the lake. The saber stood proudly facing the blazing sun, flickering with a dazzling light. Chapter 986. That's not right. That is not Luo water. That is the lunar shadow saber. Suddenly, someone's expression changed greatly. He opened his mouth and cried out in shock, as if he had seen the most unreasonable thing in the world. An uproar immediately spread among all the spectating martial artists. What happened? Where is Wen Xiren's saber? Impossible. This is impossible. It must be an illusion. However, as Wen Xiren stretched out his hand to the bottom of the lake, he grabbed the two halves of the river water saber. An unacceptable fact had happened just like that. Countless sabers broke. The famed Luo River, which carried the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian's hopes, broke. No one had expected that the result would be like this. It was the famed saber Luo Shui that was broken. As for the saber that belonged to Xiao Chun, it still stood proudly in the air, shining with a dazzling brilliance. The surroundings were silent for a long time. On the Ing family's battleship, Kim Taeho's jaw dropped. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled. You almost scared this Lord Fatty to death. I really can't open this board so carelessly in the future. The solemn expression on Ing Cheong's face slowly relaxed, and a knowing smile appeared on his face. On Nine Dragons Lake, when Xiren held the broken saber, his expression was somewhat shocked, but he did not feel too surprised. When Xiren smiled faintly and put away the broken saber. Then he wiped off the blood at the corner of his lips and looked at Xiao Chun. I heard from Master 3 days ago that you obtained a good saber at Sword Forging Manor. However, I did not expect it to be so strong. What is the name of this saber? Lunar Shadow. Xiao Chun waved his hand and returned his saber to its sheath, answering honestly. When Xiren muttered to himself for a while. Then he raised his head and smiled. Lunar Shadow, that is a pretty good name. I will remember it. Let's continue the duel. Upon hearing Wen Xiren's words, the surrounding cultivators frowned slightly. Wen Xiren's saber was already broken. Why did he still want to compete? Xiao Chun withdrew his palm and put away the lunar shadow saber. He nodded and said, I will not use a saber in this battle. You can choose another saber. Xiao Chun cultivated the flawless saber Dao. Having a saber in his hand was just icing on the cake. It wouldn't affect his combat strength, but it was different for the other party. Wen Xiren smiled and said, There is no need to choose a saber. The Luo water art that I cultivate has a great advantage in this 9 Dragons Lake. I have long heard of the flawless saber Dao. Let me see how extraordinary the saber Dao that made the ancient people show their sages is. Xiao Chun was not a stubborn and inflexible person. He could tell that Wen Xiren had already accepted the outcome of this battle. What he wanted was nothing more than to find an opponent who was on par with him, so that he could make a breakthrough in this battle. Since that was the case, then he would have nothing to worry about and fight to his heart's content. The two of them looked at each other and saw the raging fighting spirit in each other's eyes. The calm lake water surged with undercurrents. It was as if a great dragon hidden in the depths of the lake had opened its eyes and was accumulating power to soar into the sky. Feeling this atmosphere, the many cultivators on the warship and spirit birds all shut their mouths, waiting for an exciting battle to begin. Unexpectedly, the one to make the first move was Wen Xiren, who had broken his saber. When Wen Xiren smashed his palm on the water, there was a loud boom. 9 huge 3-kilometer-tall waves surged out in all directions. The waves surged forward like huge dragons. 9 dragons roared ferociously, giving off a strong aura that could swallow up the world. In an instant, they buried Xiao Chun within them. Xiao Chun's gaze sank. The 9 huge dragon-like waves surged over. Each of them contained at least 10,000 tons of force. When they merged, they could even crush a tall mountain. Most importantly, every one of the 1,000 zhang tall waves contained a peerless sharpness. That was Wen Xiren's great perfection saber soul, which perfectly merged with the will of water. Wen Xiren drove his peak strength with just a gentle palm strike. Even without a saber, Wen Xiren could not be underestimated. Many of the spectating cultivators were bladesmen. When they saw Wen Xiren's palm strike, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. If they faced this palm strike, they would most likely be crushed into meat paste on the spot, dying without a complete corpse. Wen Xiren threw a palm strike and muttered to himself, Xiao Chun, this is just the beginning. Don't disappoint me. The waves formed the momentum of the 9 dragons. The instant they were about to merge, Xiao Chun made his move. A saber light lit up on Xiao Chun's body. His body became like a saber, his shoulders like a saber, and his hair like sabers. As his figure moved, he sent out 9 saber strikes. His shoulders, hair, palms, and other parts of his body clashed with the 9 waves. 9 explosions rang out. Outside 9 Dragons Lake, the 9 peaks trembled and gave off dragon roars, echoing for 50 kilometers around. As the sound waves spread out, the surrounding warships and spirit beasts seemed to be moved by a huge hand, flipping many of them over. Such a strange turn of events caused the remaining cultivators to feel fear in their hearts. They all rode on their warships and spirit beasts and retreated. Right after Wen Xiren broke the 9 waves, he used the many layers of water to charge over to Xiao Chun in the blink of an eye. Bang! 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 Endless waves rose up on the 9 Dragons Lake. The two of them exchanged moves quickly, flying quickly over the vast lake. Wen Xiren used water as a saber. With a casual swing, the scattered lake water turned into boundless saber lights. With a thought, a wave containing strong force became the most ferocious saber technique. The sound of water surged endlessly. By relying on the terrain, Wen Xiren's aura actually surpassed that of Xiao Chun's. Even though Wen Xiren clearly did not have a saber in his hand, his aura flourished, each wave stronger than the one before. The river water incantation. I heard that the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian found this cultivation technique in an ancient remnant. Wen Xiren truly lives up to his reputation as a genius. He probably practiced this ancient cultivation technique to great perfection, just one step short of consummation. I really did not expect that after losing the river water saber, When Ziran could still hold the upper hand. When Ziran's strength made everyone's eyes light up, causing many praises to ring out. Xiaochen remained calm. When Ziran's cultivation was one cultivation grade higher than his comprehension of the water saber Dao had already reached an extremely deep level. When Ziran could turn water into a saber as he pleased, giving him a great advantage in this 9 Dragons Lake. If Xiaochen did not use the lunar shadow saber, he would have a hard time dealing with such a person. Actually, the main problem was that Xiaochen only used his saber techniques in this battle to show his respect. If he used the myriad heaven divine fist, immortal arts, magic skills, and a strong physical body, he would be able to defeat Wen Ziran in 100 moves. If Xiaochen wanted to defeat the bladeless Wen Ziran, he would only need 100 moves. However, Wen Ziran's saber was already broken in this battle. Victory was no longer Xiaochen's goal. Dragons roared endlessly as the two in the lake fought an intense battle. Xiaochen brought out his flawless saber Dao to its limits. His opponent's exquisite water saber Dao broadened his mind significantly. For example, the other party's killing move, Moon in Water, was a great eye-opener for Xiaochen. After witnessing the moon in the water, Flawless Bright Moon experienced a qualitative improvement. Flawless Bright Moon, Flawless 4 Seasons, and Subduing Dragon Profound Slash, the 3 strongest moves of his saber techniques, Xiaochen executed them one after another. Relying on the vast 9 Dragons Lake, although Wen Ziran had a hard time receiving them, he managed to receive them one by one, preventing himself from collapsing on the spot. After 1,000 moves, both sides gained something. The victor was still undecided. However, both of them sat cross-legged on the lake, closing their eyes and thinking. On one side it was drizzling. On the other, lightning occasionally flashed in the sky. Such a scene confused the other cultivators. This was clearly a duel. Why were both sides in such a rush to decide a victor? After a long time, Xiaochen opened his eyes, and the light in his eyes became withdrawn. In this battle, Xiaochen did not hold back at all in terms of saber techniques. He could be said to have met his match, fighting to his heart's content. This was like a great test, allowing Xiaochen to gain a comprehensive understanding of his saber techniques. At this moment, as long as Xiaochen willed it, he could easily cross the line between superior grade martial sage and grandmaster level martial sage, becoming a grandmaster level martial sage. After that, when Ziran opened his eyes and said calmly, "I lost this duel. Let's fight again at 9 Dragons Lake 3 years from now. The victor is not decided yet. Let's just treat it as a draw." When Ziran smiled faintly and said, "To me victory or defeat is nothing. You still have tricks up your sleeves. How can I not tell? I believe that you will give everyone a shock at the king conferral ceremony 2 months from now." Xiaochen was very relaxed as he chatted with Wen Ziran. The two just sat on the lake and chatted, discussing their views on each other's saber techniques. As they chatted and laughed, the two performed cupped fist salutes and said their goodbyes. "Should we enter Heavenly Saber City and rest for a while? There are many spectators with ulterior motives," Wen Ziran suggested as he looked into the distance. If the land of the 3 holy masters really reached an agreement with the 3 sovereign noble clans of the human race, then this duel between Xiaochen and Wen Ziran would be an excellent opportunity for the other party to make a move. How could Xiaochen not guess this? He had expected it long ago, so he did not fear these people. After entering Heavenly Saber City, Xiaochen would have to come out sooner or later, so he rejected Wen Ziran's invitation. This duel ended with Wen Ziran taking the initiative to admit defeat. The spectators slowly scattered. This duel could not be considered startling. Aside from the initial exchange of sabers, which was very exciting and soul-stirring, the subsequent duel between the two was grand and shocking. However, neither side showed any intention of competing with the other. Rather than calling it a duel, it was more like an exchange of pointers between bladesmen. Both sides were evenly matched, testing each other's moves. There was no desire to win. All the bladesmen present were incredibly excited. As Xiaochen and Wen Ziran exchanged moves, they merged the saber techniques and saber Dao that they had learned and comprehended. Each of them combined the saber arts and saber Dao that they had learned and comprehended. More or less, they all gained something from it. Xiaochen gently floated up and arrived on the Ying clan's warship. On the bow, Kim Taeho and Lord Jiu were grinning from ear to ear. When they saw Xiaochen board, they quickly went forward to greet him. "Can you lend this fat lord your Dragon's Gate's warship for a while?" Kim Taeho asked in anticipation as he rubbed his hands together. Lord Jiu, who was at the side, said, "Fatso won quite a lot from the opening of the bets. He is planning to reopen a merchant association without a warship or status." Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "Take it. I'll take some time to send a letter to Shui Lingling and get the Haotian sect to take care of your business. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come and look for me directly." Ing Qiong walked over slowly and said softly, "Hee hee. Big sister will invest the money you borrowed from me. Can I make it a big share?" When Kim Taeho heard this, he rejoiced and nodded continuously. With the support of the Haotian sect and the Ying clan, given Xiaochen's means, it would be hard for this merchant association not to become big. "Thank you for thinking so highly of me. In less than 3 years, this fat lord will definitely achieve some results." After chatting for a while, Fatso stood up and took his leave. Lord Jiu quickly followed. After asking, Xiaochen found out that Fatso had hired Lord Jiu to be his bodyguard. Chapter 987. When Xiaochen heard this, his expression could not help but turn somewhat strange. He could not help but laugh to himself. Kim Taeho was really good at picking people to be his bodyguard. Lord Jiu might not be good at anything else, but when it came to escaping, even Xiaochen had to admit that he was not as good as Lord Jiu. Ing Qiong waved his hand and dismissed everyone on the warship. Then he asked seriously, "Xiaochen, do you really not want me to send someone to escort you to the Tianwu domain's central province?" The journey to the central province's Bushan Palace was very long. There were too many accidents and possibilities. Ing Qiong could not help but worry. Xiaochen shook his head and said, "There's no need. This should be the final test the Haotian Emperor gave me. If he really wants to send me, he can tear space and send me there in an instant. I still have to walk this path myself." Seeing Xiaochen's insistence, Ing Qiong sighed to himself. He knew that the other party would not change his mind. He said softly, "Since that is the case, I will not try to dissuade you. Remember, you must succeed in the king conferral ceremony. Many of the old people in the clan are watching you. If you fail, too much time has passed. Some promises might not be able to withstand the test of time." Xiaochen's heart skipped a beat. He vaguely guessed what the other party meant. The Sky Dome Realm's Ying clan must have been sent by the Kunlun Realm's Ying clan to protect the Xiao clan's descendant. From the looks of it, the Ying clan might be a contingency plan left behind by the Qing Emperor before he fell 10,000 years ago. However, whether Xiaochen could help him or not would depend on his performance. "I will." From the moment I revealed my identity, the title of Blue Dragon King was destined to be mine. The Bushan Palace did not belong to one or a few people. It represented the alliance of the entire human race, ruling over the vast Tianwu domain. There were also the countless stars in the starry heavens. Such a rule had lasted since the ancient era until now. This rule was deeply ingrained in every human cultivator. The Bushan Palace was the most legitimate ruler of the human race. The title granted by Bushan Palace was very important. This was not just an empty reputation. It also represented a kind of luck, one that was recognized by all the human cultivators. The title of Blue Dragon King was not won by the Qing Emperor. Instead, it was left behind by the founder of the Dragon Gate, a sacred land that had disappeared. The Dragon Gate's existence could also be traced back to the ancient era, which was even older than the Qing Emperor. However, the Dragon Gate developed to a peak in the hands of the Qing Emperor. As a result, when people mentioned the Dragon Gate, they would refer to it as the Qing Emperor's Dragon Gate. Every generation's Dragon Gate master was the current generation's Blue Dragon King. This title was extremely important to Xiaochen. Without this title, when they rebuilt the Dragon's Gate in the future, they would lose their status. They would not be recognized by the hundreds of millions of human cultivators. Without luck, they would not be able to rebuild the Dragon's Gate. Xiaochen gently leaped off the warship and landed on the ground. Then he raised his head and looked into the distance. Then he started on this journey that he could only rely on himself to reach. As Xiaochen traveled on a small mountain path, he was not in a rush. Instead, he continued to digest his gains from the battle with Wenziren. Flawless bright moon. Did the night or the moon come first? Was it the flawless night that made the moon flawless? Or was it the flawless bright moon that made the night perfect and flawless? Without the setting of the night, there would not be the radiance of the bright moon. After thinking for 3 days, Xiaochen finally figured out the relationship between the two. Only the darkest night could bring out the most perfect moon. The peaceful days lasted for a month. Just as Xiaochen was about to step out of the profound domain, a group of purple-clad people stopped him. These people were not the people of the Yan, Jiang, or Lin noble clans. They were all cultivators of the Purple Knight Sword sect. There were not many of them, only about 20. Every one of them was at least a martial sage. With Xiaochen's current judgment, these people's cultivations could not be considered high. However, all of them gave off a sharp light. Without exception, these people were all swordsmen who comprehended sword intent. The person leading them was the great grandmaster level martial sage Ouyang Long. Back at sword forging peak, Xiaochen had let Ouyang Long off. There was another person beside Ouyang Long. This person was even older and gave off the aura of someone past his prime. It was unknown if he was an old monster who had lived for several hundred years. This person was not in closed-door cultivation, but was thinking about how to break through to the blue-robed emperor realm. Unexpectedly, Ouyang Long pulled him out. This lineup before Xiaochen was about half the strength of the Purple Knight Sword sect. Even as a great grandmaster level martial sage, Ouyang Long could not mobilize them. It looked like someone had convinced the Purple Knight Sword sect. Xiaochen remained silent. He only remembered the name Purple Knight Sword sect in his heart. Ouyang Long was in high spirits. He smiled and said, "Haha, Xiaochen, you have been very impressive in the profound domain these days. Unfortunately, you will not be able to return alive. Give this old man a longevity fruit, and this old man will not interfere with your journey to the central province." The white-haired old man beside Ouyang Long said in a somewhat hoarse voice. Xiaochen's gaze did not linger on this group of people for long. He looked down from the sky and smiled. "Even if I give you another 500 years of lifespan, it would be a waste. You will only have the life of a great grandmaster level martial sage. Feeding it to the dogs is better than wasting it on you." The white-haired old man raged. "What a sharp-tongued brat. Today this old man will use your corpse to feed the dogs. Lay the formation." Right after the white-haired old man spoke, 20 martial sages with sword intent drew their swords and leaped into the air. Sonic booms rang out. Strong sword intents quickly merged in the air. Once they landed, a huge purple knight sword formation would form. With this sword formation, coupled with the strength of Ouyang Long and the white-haired old man, anyone under the blue-robed emperor would find it hard to escape death. Clang! However, just as the sword intents merged, a saber light lit up on Xiaochen's body. A great perfection saber soul containing the will of thunder surged out from Xiaochen's body. A resonant saber hum resounded, and a saber intent as vast as the sea spread out from Xiaochen's body. At the most suitable opportunity, Xiaochen instantly shattered the sword intents of these 20 martial sages, not giving them a chance to build up their power to its peak. Xiaochen's figure moved, and countless saber lights flashed out of his body. Miserable cries resounded. The 20 martial sages had just leaped up when they vomited blood and fell to the ground, severely injured. Xiaochen thought to himself, how unfortunate. There are too many of them. If there were not more than 10, with their scattered sword intents, he could instantly kill them all. The thing that the flawless saber Dao feared the least was being surrounded. With one move, Xiaochen injured 20 martial sages who comprehended sword intent. Ouyang Long and the white-haired old man were greatly startled. Their plans were completely ruined. Whoosh! The white-haired old man's figure flashed, and he decisively retreated, completely betraying Ouyang Long. That old bastard! Ouyang Long cursed in his heart. Then he turned around, preparing to flee. However, a white figure blocked Ouyang Long's path. "I wonder, where did you get the courage to try and kill me? A swordsman who has not comprehended a sword soul is already nothing in my eyes." Xiao Chun looked coldly at Ouyang Long without any expression on his face. Damn it! A ferocious look flashed in Ouyang Long's eyes. He drew his sword, and a sharp light turned into a sword light piercing towards Xiao Chun at lightning speed. Ouyang Long wanted to force Xiao Chun away and create a chance for himself to leave. This sword strike contained all of Ouyang Long's strength. The sword light was so resplendent that no one dared to look at it directly. The sharpness of the sword light could pierce through a tall mountain. However, without a soul, no matter how strong it was just for show. Xiao Chun did not move at all. The instant the sword light touched his body, he stretched out his hand and clamped down. The two fingers of his right hand firmly clamped down on the sword. Buzz! A strong force came from the sword. Xiao Chun's clothes and hair fluttered wildly. Spider-like cracks spread out under his feet. In the next moment, countless boulders soared into the air behind Xiao Chun. They were densely packed and covered the sky. However, Xiao Chun did not move at all. He only used two fingers to clamp down on this great Grandmaster-level martial sage's sword. Xiao Chun's body was like a saber, as steady as a mountain. His exceptional sharpness intimidated everyone. Ouyang Long's old face flushed red. A bona fide great Grandmaster-level martial sage, with more than 300 years of cultivation, actually had his sword clamped down on by a junior's fingers. Ding! Just as Ouyang Long struggled with all his might, trying to pull his sword out, a sword light charged at Xiao Chun's back. It was the white-haired old man who had returned. He smiled sinisterly and said, "The older the wiser. Brat die." The white-haired old man had grasped this opportunity very well. It happened to be when Xiao Chun clamped down on Ouyang Long's sword. If Xiao Chun gave up now, it would give Ouyang Long a chance to attack. This sword strike contained all of Ouyang Long's cultivation. At the very least, it could pierce through Xiao Chun. If Xiao Chun did not give up, he would be stuck in a dilemma. He would not be able to dodge the white-haired old man's sword strike. Hence, Ouyang Long felt incredibly cocky, smiling coldly. He felt that even if Xiao Chun did not die, he would be severely injured. Clang! Clang! Xiao Chun smiled faintly. He was not surprised at the white-haired old man's sword strike. Xiao Chun exerted force with his two fingers, and the blue dragon energy in his body circulated quickly. Thunder roared in his body. Before Ouyang Long's incredulous expression, Xiao Chun twisted his fingers, and the sword shattered. Ouyang Long vomited a mouthful of blood, and went flying back. Then, Xiao Chun turned around and stretched out his hand. Like a treasured saber, all the sharpness gathered at his fingertip. A melodious sound rang out. That was the melodious hum of a saber. The night sky instantly turned pitch black. One could not see their fingers when they stretched out their hands, covering the sky. The instant night completely descended, Xiao Chun's fingertip happened to touch the tip of the white-haired old man's sword. The white-haired old man's vision went dark. Before he could adapt to this new environment, he saw a flash of light. Kasie! Kasie! The sound of the sword breaking rang out again. When the light grew brighter, a crescent moon shot out from Xiao Chun's fingertip. The light flashed and chopped the white-haired old man in half. Then, it soared into the sky. The crescent moon spun gently and turned into a bright moon hanging high in the sky. Xiao Chun looked at the full moon in the sky and revealed a satisfied expression. He muttered to himself, "Not bad. This is the true flawless bright moon. First comes the night, then the moon. When the night is perfect and flawless, naturally, the moon will not be stained by dust." However, there were several other reasons why Xiao Chun could kill the other party, a great Grandmaster-level martial sage, in one move. Firstly, the other party had been careless. Secondly, this was probably the first time the other party faced such a miraculous saber technique. Most importantly, rather than calling the other party a swordsman, he was more like a scoundrel. All he had was his cultivation. He was far from being a powerful great Grandmaster-level martial sage. Furthermore, he was on the verge of death and had lost his drive. When Xiao Chun killed him, he was like a withered piece of rotten wood. It was not worth it, he was too proud. Chapter 988. Such a scene startled Ouyang Long, who was underground. As he looked at the white-clad Xiao Chun under the moonlight, He exuded the air of a grandmaster. The air of a grandmaster. Since when did he advance to grandmaster level martial sage? That's not right. His cultivation is still far from that. He is not a grandmaster level martial sage yet. Ouyang Long did not dare to think further. Ignoring the other Purple Knight Sword Sect disciples, he turned around and fled. With a thought, the bright moon in the sky slowly disappeared. As Xiaochen watched Ouyang Long flee, a murderous intent flashed on his face. He stood on 2 lightning dragons and moved as fast as lightning, appearing like a flickering light. The purple lightning talisman in Xiaochen's sea of consciousness spun continuously. The might of his will supported the lightning dragons under him. This made Xiaochen look like he was standing on a bolt of lightning, becoming one with it. He was astonishingly fast. With a few accelerations, he caught up to the injured Ouyang Long. Bang! 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 Ouyang Long no longer had a sword in his hand. Furthermore, he was injured. How could he block Xiaochen? In less than 10 moves, Xiaochen knocked him to the ground, weakening him. Cough! Cough! Xiaochen, don't be happy too early. This time, not only will you not be able to go to the king conferral ceremony, but you can also forget about surviving. Ouyang Long knew that he would die for sure. He roared in despair. You will definitely die on the way. Before Ouyang Long could finish speaking, Xiaochen stretched out his hand and pointed. A saber light flashed, and a bloody hole appeared on Ouyang Long's forehead. Xiaochen removed Ouyang Long's spatial ring, and weighed it before placing it in his universe ring. Ouyang Long's dying words echoed in Xiaochen's mind. You are walking a dead end, a dead end. Xiaochen looked into the distance, in the direction of the central province's Bushin Palace. Xiaochen's footsteps did not hesitate at all. He did not shrink back at all as he walked forward without hesitation. He was like the heart of a bladesman, not panicking, not hesitating, rather breaking than bending. In the sky, on a heavy warship, the members of the 3 sovereign clans gathered together. Inside the control room, Yan Shirsi and the scions of the Jiang and Lin clans sat together. An old man stood behind each of them. They were the first elders of the 3 clans. In front of them, there was a mirror that looked like a water curtain. The scene of 2 great grandmaster-level martial sages dying at Xiaochen's hands appeared on the screen. These people all sucked in a breath of cold air. They had never thought that Xiaochen would actually grow to such an extent. The Lin clan's scion had a gloomy gaze as he said, "We really can't let this fellow live. Otherwise, he will definitely become the second Qing emperor." At that time, if he were to take charge of Bushin Palace, there would definitely be no way for our family to survive. Yan Shirsi smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. He absolutely won't be able to escape this time. Perhaps we might not even need to make a move." Although this group of people had seen Xiaochen's strength, they were still very confident that they could kill Xiaochen. Clearly, they had made ample preparations and had the means to kill Xiaochen. 7 days later, Xiaochen arrived at a city. This was a large city at the borders of the Profound Domain and the Tianwu Domain. It was called Strange Fire City. Along the way, aside from practicing martial techniques, Xiaochen did not neglect the most fundamental cultivation. Xiaochen had 49 peak spirit veins and the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, which surpassed a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. His cultivation speed increased by leaps and bounds. If not for the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 7th layer strengthening Xiaochen's foundation, he would have successfully advanced to Grandmaster level martial sage long ago. He would not have had to wait until now. At this moment, Xiaochen was only a hair's breadth away from Grandmaster level martial sage. With just a little effort, he could advance to Grandmaster level martial sage. However, Xiaochen had even greater ambitions. Grandmaster level martial sage was not what he wanted. Xiaochen wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to break through to peak superior grade martial sage and directly advance to great grandmaster level martial sage. Only then would he be able to use his absolute strength to suppress the White Emperor city's Xiaohoju, killing all the people who were planning to cause trouble and ruin. This was not impossible. Xiaochen did not lack resources at all. Furthermore, he had 48 peak spirit veins. Even the inheritors of the Holy Lands could not compare to him. What he lacked was only inner comprehension and vision. Those older generation great-grandmaster level martial sages all had more than 100 years of comprehension and vision. What Xiaochen wanted to do was to use this test as an opportunity to walk the path that those people had taken 100 years to walk in one step. This was also why Xiaochen rejected Ying Qiong's offer to send someone to escort him. He could only walk this path himself. Otherwise, even if he went to the central province and appeared at the king conferral ceremony, he would just be embarrassing himself. Collecting his thoughts, Xiaochen started to size up the city before him. It was too quiet, very uncoordinated. Xiaochen scanned the streets with his spiritual sense. The streets were empty. He stepped into the city. There were stalls, restaurants, and shops on the wide streets. There was only some dust. This city had not been empty for long. Boom. When Xiaochen arrived at the center of the city, a sharp, cold killing chi suddenly surged out of the silent city and soared into the clouds. Many elite soldiers wearing black armor and holding crossbows leaped out of the buildings in the city. Killing chi radiated from them, and there were at least 50,000 of them. When looking carefully, everyone's position seemed to have some tricks up their sleeves, like they formed a strange formation. The many spears of killing chi all pointed at Xiaochen. Even Xiaochen felt unnatural. His muscles tensed up, and his law energy quickly pulsed. Xiaochen frowned slightly, finding this somewhat incredulous. Earlier, when he scanned the city with his spiritual sense, he had not seen anyone. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of horses galloping resounded. A few large black horses galloped over from the distance, kicking up a trail of dust as they galloped over. The horses whipped their whips, and in a few breaths, a small group of 100 cavalrymen arrived before Xiaochen. The black armor of the 100 cavalrymen before Xiaochen was even thicker and more solid than that of the elite soldiers. Occasionally, light flashed between the gaps of the armor. It was clearly a complete set of superior grade sage grade secret treasures. A complete set of superior grade sage grade secret treasures was much stronger than an ordinary king grade secret treasure. A complete set of 100 cavalrymen was a large sum of money. Without 20 million black astral coins, it would be difficult to obtain them. In fact, even if one had the money, it would not be easy. The black horse that Xiaochen rode was not an ordinary spirit beast. Based on its characteristics, it was clearly a peak warhorse, the Qilin horse. Just the horse itself was as strong as a martial sage. When the cavalrymen were 1 kilometer away from Xiaochen, they stopped in an orderly fashion. They did not say a word, only looking coldly at Xiaochen. Xiaochen searched his mind for information on Strange Fire City. As a large city at the borders, Strange Fire City was under the jurisdiction of the Bushan Palace. It had the responsibility of protecting the Tianwu domain in the first place. These soldiers on the roofs were all elite soldiers who had experienced hundreds and thousands of battles. They were much stronger than some of the disciples of the 9 ranks of the great families. The city lord Wang Feng had the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor. These cavalrymen before Xiaochen might be the other party's personal guards. White-robed Xiaochen, Strange Fire City's city lord, Wang Feng. I have long heard of your great name. As Xiaochen pondered, a black-clad man stood on the tallest tower in the city and spoke to Xiaochen. That tall tower was 10 kilometers away from Xiaochen. Xiaochen could only see a black figure with his eyes. He could not make out the other party's appearance. When Xiaochen sent his spiritual sense over, an aura affected him. Similarly, he could only see a vague silhouette. Wang Feng stood on that tall tower, not doing anything. Wind and clouds churned behind him. The wind and clouds inhaled and exhaled all sorts of scenes, giving one a feeling of vast mountains and rivers, a majestic grandeur. The blue-robed emperor. This was the blue-robed emperor. No matter where he was in the Kunlun realm, he would be known as the blue-robed emperor. With one more step, he would be able to ascend to the Great Tao and enter the realm of Emperor Wu. The other party set up such a large formation, but did not rush to attack. Xiaochen did not know what they were planning. Xiaochen did not make any changes. He said sullenly, "The Haotian sex Xiaochen greets City Lord Wang." 10 kilometers away, on the tall tower, Wang Feng smiled and said, "Even in such a situation, you can still remain so calm." White-robed Xiaochen, You are rather courageous. I, Wang, will not speak any nonsense. On behalf of the White Emperor City's Holy Lord, I invite you to stay in this small city for 1 month. After 1 month, the sky and the sea will be vast, and you will be free to roam. Wang Feng's words were rather beautiful. After 1 month, the king conferral ceremony would have ended long ago. Xiao Chen asked calmly, "What if I say no?" Wang Feng had guessed Xiao Chen's answer long ago. He smiled faintly and said, "Then my 50,000 soldiers guarding the border will make sure you die without a corpse." Wang Feng's tone was calm and casual. However, right after Wang Feng spoke, the originally bleak killing qi in the city turned even colder. 50,000 pairs of eyes stared at Xiao Chen from the eaves. A cold killing qi seeped out of their pores. Most people would not be able to endure such a formation. Fear would spread to every part of the body. It would be bad if one could bring out half their combat prowess. Strange Fire City guarded the border. As long as Xiao Chen entered the Tianwu domain from this direction, the other party would immediately discover him. Whether he entered the city or not, the result would be the same. Sorry for the offense. At this point, there was nothing more to say. Even if there were thousands of soldiers, he had to give it a try. He had to go to the king conferral ceremony. Whoosh. The moment Xiao Chen pushed off the ground, before he left the ground, countless sonic booms rang out. Many black arrows flickered with light, giving off ear-piercing screeches as they flew towards Xiao Chen. Without needing to look, Xiao Chen could guess that these were not ordinary arrows. They could definitely injure a Grandmaster-level martial sage. The 50,000 elite soldiers guarding the border of Strange Fire City were definitely not just for show. The arrows were like rain, covering the sky and the ground, not leaving any blind spots. Piercing sonic booms filled the air. The killing qi that Xiao Chen stored up earlier exploded at this moment. Heaven and earth trembled as it erupted. Bang, bang, bang. A boundless saber intent shot out from every part of Xiao Chen's body. The arrows shattered in the air, unable to get close to Xiao Chen. Standing on a lightning dragon, Xiao Chen moved as fast as lightning. His figure flickered endlessly in the air, sending saber winds everywhere. The black-armored soldiers on the eaves leaped around, appearing very agile. The arrows moved like beams of light, shooting out continuously. The black-armored soldiers closely followed Xiao Chen. As long as he relaxed, 10,000 arrows would pierce his heart. The 100 black-armored soldiers below stared at Xiao Chen's figure. They did not say anything, their faces expressionless. Even further away, Wang Feng, who was on the tall tower, smiled faintly as he stood upright with his hands behind his back. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.